Hey everyone, it's Craig.
And Katya.
And you know what we want to tell them about?
Hawaii Five-0 is having a sale on pilgrim hats.
That's right, and pumpernickel.
Pumpernickel bread is so underrated. That's why I choose rye.
And that's why I like to go check out my options on patreon.com/Katya and Craig.
That's where all the relevant tea is spilled, as it were, and not to mention certain facts that can be used as receipts upon dragging a person, tearing off their wig, going off, snapping. Snatching.
Absolutely.
Spalding.
Oh,
Spalding Gray her. Drag her, monologue her.
Diane Weist her.
Oh my God. Ellen Barkin her to death, hunty.
Barbara Hershey.
Oh, who Hershey?
Who was she?
Damn.
Find out all that and more on patreon.com/Katya and Craig. Because what do we have there? We got the bonus episodes?
We got bonus episodes. We got extra episodes. We got exclusive episodes. We got firewall pay-through non-standard secret episodes. We got movie clubs. We got anti-movie clubs. We got fish and chips. We got haggis. We got deals and deal or no deals. And we got Howie Mandel's OCD pay-per-view comedy hour.
That's right. Absolutely. All that and more, plus listen to questions. So listen, go there at patreon.com/Katya and Craig and enjoy yourself. So listen, why don't we get into the episode now?
A Russian ballerina, stomping on a bureaucrat, a perky suburban housewife who just got into scat. It's whimsically volatile.
It's been a minute since I've held a microphone. We've stopped Queen Kong, so we haven't had a...
I know, right?
Yeah, it was weekly there forever. So now I'm like, ooh, the mic's back in hand. I have the power.
I had a microphone in my hand for like 10 years, and then I'm like a month off.
You had to let that go because you wanted to focus on...
The show, yeah.
Yeah, of course, the show being Dragula, which everyone knows and loves. And, I like to do a little intro. You thought you were safe listening to a podcast, possibly on earbuds at the grocery store or on a Bluetooth speaker while relaxing at home. Or maybe you're driving in your car by yourself on a busy road. You thought you were safe, but you thought wrong, because even though you can't see them or smell them, Swanthula and Drakmora are about to take control of your mind, spirit, and holds for the duration of this very special Halloween edition of Whimsically Volatile, because it's time to roll out the bloodstained carpet for none other than the infamous, nefarious, and wickedly glamorous Boulet Brothers.
Hello, uglies.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Oh, thanks for coming. Swan and Drac, it's a delight. It's so hard to turn this music off, but we'll have to
let it ride.
Yeah, why not? This is our theme for the whole show now. Yeah. 2 favorite horror movies of yours each.
I'm going to go with my default, which is Halloween. It's a little mainstream, but it's just, for me, it's like one of my favorites. And it's interesting because this Halloween 4 in particular, for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it resonates with us. And this year, which I can say now, we have a special episode coming up on Dragula. It's coming out in a couple of days, which is our Halloween episode. And we have Danielle Harris, who is the star of Halloween 4, as a guest judge.
Oh, fantastic.
Episode. Yeah.
Really exciting.
Must have been thrilled about that. Now, what is it about Halloween 4 in particular?
I'm not sure what it is. I think it was the first time I saw like a kid, like a vulnerable child in that kind of situation.
Sure, yeah.
But then at the end, she sort of becomes the killer, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know what it must have been, just like the time of my life when I watched it,
I'll go with one of my old classic favorite ones because it really kind of struck me when I was young, which was The Dream Warriors. It was Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
It's so funny because the score by Angela Badalamenti was almost the background for that intro.
Oh, really? How perfect.
Yeah. But then Maniac Cop, though, just kind of crawled over.
Oh, no, so into it. and I know that a lot of people, and even like people that are close to us and run in our circles, they don't like to mix their horror and their comedy.
Sure.
But I like that. I like that 80s sensibility, like the high camp, and I like to laugh as well as be scared and kind of be on the edge of my seat because it exhausts me in a good way, but I can't have that level like the whole film. Like I like to laugh at it and have fun.
Yeah, it's a little stressful just to have the nonstop. Right, you need a bit of a levity in there. Not brevity. That would be a very short film. Yeah, number 3 is one of my favorites as well. I love The New Nightmare. I'm trying to remember the one that has and it's come up on the show a lot, the one that has the Fat Boys song in it. I think it's like 5 or 6.
Oh my God, I don't know.
It's not the peak Freddy, for sure.
I probably chose to just omit that from my memory.
Maybe that's why I can't remember it, even though we've talked about it on the show before. But obviously, you have a fondness or penchant, as Hollow Eve might say, for horror and comedy, which is very clear in the show. You know, there's mischievousness to it, even when, you know, the extermination is you're going to be eating blood.
Yes, I think so. You know, it's the fun of reality TV. You know, we're huge fans of reality TV, but sort of very real reality TV. You know, so it's sort of like, I don't like to see things that are overly produced. So we kind of are fans of some really raw reality, and we try to bring that to our show. So we don't kind of plan out storylines ahead and try to pit people. Well, what are we going to do about this or that? We really want to see how they react in this environment. Yeah. And so I think that's why you see that kind of heart come across on screen, because they literally don't know what's happening until it's happening.
Yeah, and you do see a lot of heart.
Sometimes they're served right there for dinner.
That's right. That's right. The metaphorical heart, the literal heart. It's wonderful. You deliver everything. It's really nice to see the arc of everyone through the show, because it is very real, you know, and that's the sign of a truly real show. I have friends on Vanderpump Rules, and so you see like how the sausage is made, and they're very real as well. But some other shows, you can watch them, especially after you produce it, I imagine, and you're like, great, how many producers came up with this?
Yeah. It's strange having done the show for a few years now. It's given us this kind of proverbial pair of like X-ray specs. Like, I can't watch a movie that, or you know, if there's any chink in the armor of a television show or a movie, you're like, I can see how this was staged, written, lit, like how they wanted this to be. You know, not that it gives you that ability once you're behind the camera, kind of creating all that stuff.
Well, it's basically you've learned a new language, or not new, but I mean, like you've learned this language, and so you hear it when you're watching. You know what I mean? Like I'm mixing metaphors.
I think that's a good metaphor.
Yeah, thank you. It's mixed but good. But and also mixed, like as you said in another clip I watched, you like your parties to be mixed, not one thing, not one style.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's sort of what the TV show has grown out of, is that energy. So it was, you know, people always say, oh, well, we're so excited that you included drag kings and bio, you know, everything. And I'm like, it's weird for us because that's what we've always done.
Yeah,
and it's sort of what we wanted to do with the show from day one. Season 1, we tried to put drag kings and everything on there, but it was new and people were used to Drag Race. And so they thought, when you would call out for auditions, you didn't get this huge variety of people applying because they just assumed that they couldn't get on. And it was very frustrating for us.
Yeah, we actually tried to inspire people in the second season as well. But, you know, everything happens as it should. And I think this season strikes kind of like the perfect chord, and everyone's kind of primed and ready to accept different barriers, you know, that they set up for themselves or that someone sets up for them. Like, we've been trying to groom them a little bit to be like, it's kind of open for everybody.
Yeah. It's kind of groundbreaking, really, because you don't see that on, I mean, Drag Race is wonderful. I'm sure you're fans of it as well.
Yes.
But it is still struggling with certain issues.
We've danced around the Drag Race question many times, or just kind of directly kind of tackled it. And obviously there's like a comparison or a connection in the conversation, at least. But we've always maintained that they have done some groundbreaking stuff by just existing and pushing as hard as they have for as long as they have into the mainstream world. But in that time and taking those steps, they've also established some boundaries, like you know, certain people are allowed in this market or allowed in this arena. And from our world, whether it be like where we met each other in New York or when we came here to LA and we started partying, you know, the mixing of like the genders and the sexual orientations and, you know, the need to even define all that stuff, I find personally annoying and just kind of almost depressing and sad.
Sure.
Like, we don't need to have that many separating factors to keep us away from each other. You know, we started moving in the direction of like, well, this is what we're going to do with our parties and this is what we're going to do with our show. So when people saw us kind of doing us, what we've always kind of done, they're like, oh, they assume that there was this inherent backlash or kind of flipping up our finger at what they've done. But we've always respected what Drag Race has created.
Of course, yeah.
But
I know sometimes people like to read an intention that's not there into something. Really, you're just doing what you've been doing.
And we're just the type of bitches to do it, I think, but that's not our motivator at all.
Also, where we come from, just to give you a little bit of history, you know, our drag, we didn't start doing drag in a traditional way that a lot of people do, which is like, I'm going to go work at the clubs and get a gig and lip sync and do these kind of, you know, classic drag situations.
Yeah.
We created our own space, and we come from more of a Rocky Horror kind of like, that is what our parties have always been like. So that's why our stage performances and the people that we work with, it's always been been kind of genderless in a way.
Yeah, sure.
And so, Dragula used to be a club that we did.
Right.
And the first night, I remember, the final 3, and everybody competed. It was open to everything. There was like drag kings and just everything in between. And the final people on stage was, you have your classic drag character.
Sure.
We had a trans performer and also an AFAB queen that were all competing at the finale. And I saw a picture of that recently, and it just kind of reminded me. And it's like, that has been our intent from sort of the beginning, Now, that's not to say that we're going to consistently forever cast that, because it has to be the right people that, it has to be the right people that fit the
We're
Dragula
not just going to
bill.
put you on the show because you're the only drag king that auditioned.
Right.
You can definitely tell that it's not simply filling quotas and trying to get a certain look. It's about the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which is another thing I love about the show, especially when you start to see the people open up. You see, the insecurities, you see the traumas, you see what people have overcome. And you also see the sometimes very hard, icy shell that people who have gone through trauma, adopt in order to protect themselves, because you feel one kind of way about someone at the beginning of the season. And as you go along, you start to see different shades. To go back, you mentioned history, and I think your history is so rich and fascinating that I'd like to go back to the beginning of where you two met, and which I would believe is in New York. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what was the scene? What was the circumstances?
The year was
I could put more theme music on.
That would be so good. Don't get me going. I'll weave a tale. We met through a mutual friend at a place called La Nouvelle Justine, which is no longer there. It was on 23rd Street. It was like a fetish themed restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They existed in that location for, I think, a short while, then moved downtown and was like adjacent to like Lucky Chang's, which was like another kind of drag staple at the time.
Sure. Now, just out of curiosity, a fetish themed restaurant. Now, what was the menu like?
It was kind of French, right?
Yeah, it was a French restaurant, and you could have. I know very well because I actually worked there, and that's how we met. Which I don't think we ever really disclosed that.
Ooh, I love this.
New information,
exactly.
cutting edge. You heard it here first. Yes, I was employed there, and a friend of ours who was a photographer brought Drac in as his guest, and we met through him, and we kind of like never stopped. We've had like a conversation that's been ongoing pretty much since that day. Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long from the initial meeting was it that you started to create your own space?
We sort of spent a lot of time we used to do different things. So we used to work in publishing. So we sort of got used to working together then. So I would write things, he would illustrate them. So we sort of started working together back then. When we moved to LA, which was, I believe, probably 3 or 4 years after we met, is when we eventually landed in LA, we decided, we were doing publishing then too. But we decided, we're like, let's throw a party, because we had this idea. I was like, I really want to do something kind of like 1920s cabaret, but like an Electro Clash version of that.
Do you remember Electro Clash?
Absolutely.
Oh, so fun.
Hungry Wives, Sister Sisters, Fisher Spooner really as well.
Yeah, early 2000s, it was irreverent and kind of campy and ridiculous and amazing, and the beats were just so sick. Like, it was really fun.
And it allowed artists to make music that really could never get on a label.
Sure.
But it was really fun and raw. Kind of reminds me of our show a little bit, actually. But, so that was sort of our first club that we created together.
And it was really born from the ashes of like our move to Los Angeles and us feeling like, damn, there's nothing here that really speaks to us. These were like the dying days of like Makeup and Cherry, which we actually went to and loved and supported.
Sure.
Like every week we were there all the time. We were, really into partying then. But other than that, it was like the scenes of the city where everything was so segregated, and we felt that the gay scene was very whitewashed and annoying. So we just created our own space, and that's really where shows were born out of that, and a variety of drag incarnations and gender hackery and just all the experimental stuff that we were doing at the time was born out of that party.
What were some of the names of the nights that you were doing?
So Miss Kitty's Parlor was our main staple for a long time. And
the legendary Miss Kitty's Parlor.
That ran for 9 years. We did that for 9 years every Friday night. We did Miss Kitty's Parlor. There was Black Unicorn. We had a club called
Deluxe.
Fucker, Deluxe. Lots of them. But Miss Kitty's was the probably really defining one for us.
They all didn't work, that's for sure. Like what happens, I think it's kind of a pattern for us. Like the first time we get up, we're up at bat, we hit the home run.
I got you.
That doesn't mean we hit a home run every time and everything that we do is like, success.
But that's a really good thing for people to hear, though. You know what I mean? Because someone can just see the show, have a sort of cursory knowledge, especially if they don't live in LA, and be like, oh man, these guys kill it at this. Could I ever have something? But that's a key thing. Like a lot of stuff with nightlife is very hit or miss, and it's nothing to do with your intention or ability.
Yeah. I mean, I think then it was a little bit of like the perfect storm, our inspiration, the time, the city really needed something, and we were coming in with a fresh idea, and it really worked. Yeah. Plus, we were so spirited about it. Like, we knew exactly what we wanted. The vision was there, so we just made it. And it was almost like the power of our will, like, forced it upon the community, and it was undeniable.
When you create the thing that you want to go to, that's a really critical thing. People say that about music and with nightlife as well. And when you said that there weren't all successes, what did you mean? Like you would have like a great launch night of one thing, and then sometimes it'd be
Miss Kitty's was a success right from the start. I think our first night was super packed, and we looked at each other. We're like, holy shit, there are so many people here.
For your first nightclub.
Almost like, fuck, wait.
It was a little bit of that.
It was a little, fuck, right?
And then, we took to it pretty quickly.
And then shortly after we moved it to a much larger venue, we saw that this is on fire. So we needed more space. Like, we're burning down the walls here. Let's move. Totally. And we did, and we found our new home for 8.5 more years.
Well, yeah, I think it's like offshoot nights, like other rando things, those sometimes you get pressure to do those things when you have something that's successful, especially in nightlife. Exactly. They want more, club owners want you to produce more, obviously, because they make more money off of it. And so they sort of, let's do this and we'll give you this and that. And you're kind of, all right, let's come up with a new concept. But unless you're really feeling it, in our case, it's not going to work. We have to really believe in it, and then we can make anything work.
Which is the same thing that's happened with Dragula, because even at the time of the party's incarnation, it was like, oh, we're doing this just for us. This is going to be amazing. I don't care who comes to it. And it just took, it took off. Yeah. Same thing with the show, though, which Drac says it because she really knew back then too, when we first thought of the concept, is like, this is going to be bigger. This is going to go. Yeah. This is going to go into like the TV space.
Mm-hmm. And that's the hardest thing, I think, is when you know something is going to happen, but everybody else doesn't. And you're acting like they already know, and then it's frustrating. You're like, what are you talking about? This show is major,
Don't you know that already?
Yeah. You're like, what? Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh, right.
Right. They haven't seen it yet. Oh,
I know yet. Well, especially you're working on stuff down the road and you know what's happening.
Of course, you're months and months ahead, and plus when you're passionate about something too, it kind of dominates your mind a little, and so it's hard to factor in that sometimes.
Yes, for sure.
I like that you pointed out though that thing of where people are offering you things, because once you have success, sometimes it can be a little confusing because you are being thrown these offers, and it's like, well, why would I say no to this? But like you said, often if you're not feeling it, it's not going to work. Yeah.
I always think you got to do what makes you happy.
Right.
Yeah. I know it's cliche, but I do believe that, as we've tried to do things that don't make us happy and they don't work.
Or do things for money or other reasons like that if the inspiration isn't there. Or sometimes the best thing you can do is say no.
Sure. Right. And how long did it take to sort of figure that out?
This was like this past week. I learned that.
See, we have breaking news and new lessons, which I like. Yeah.
Honestly, no, I mean, not to be silly, but like kind of this year, I feel like this year we really, that might sound crazy because we've been throwing parties for upwards of like 20 years, but this year we understood the power of no and taking things away and waiting, because that gets people antsy too. Sometimes that gets people more excited than the new thing.
Do you find that sometimes you can get tripped up by fear of expectation?
I mean, it can happen, but I do think because there's two of us, we can bounce, we have the luxury of bouncing ideas off each other. So we can reassure each other in a way where some of my friends that maybe do things independently, they don't have that, know? And so I think the self-doubt, it's a little easier to experience that, because now, if she's like, well, I don't know about this, I'm like, it's fine, trust me, we got it. And then you can kind of depend on each other. So
that goes both ways for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't experience a lot of that, honestly. We kind of just go forward,
Because I was curious about that, because I found one of the most interesting things about your show is you talk about fear. Now, obviously, there's the very visceral aspect of fear of jumping out of a plane or fear of bugs or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's the other layer, which is much more interesting to me, which is you're just getting over fear in general, because everyone has to get over fear. And it made me wonder if you two individually, have gotten over fears of things in the past, and is that like a guiding principle?
I want to speak to this. Yes,
Sure.
the answer is yes, and on a personal level and a business level. So I will try not to go too.
No, listen,
be too
I go long,
long-winded.
you go long.
Okay. So business wise, you're always told to sort of work hard, put your head down, do your 9 to 5, do this and that, and your life will be good. That's just not true. That's a fallacy, especially in today's economy.
Certainly,
That's not the reality. And we took a big gamble and just said, we believe in this. We're going to leave all that world behind and throw events. And sure, were we poor and struggled and it was horrible forever? Of course, you know?
Yeah.
But honestly, we were happy because we were doing what we wanted to do. And there's some scary things that we experienced. There's risks that we had to take that were incredibly scary.
Yeah.
And they didn't all pan out. But at the end of the day, we could have never gotten where we are now without taking those risks. And it's just about overcoming the fear and the fear that people put in your head. They don't have ill intent, but like, your family, your friends, they buy into what what's being sold to you as well.
The sickening part is that they believe that they are imparting on you like this nugget of knowledge that's going to help drive you into a successful future. But what I've found is that the seed that they plant, that like, no, don't go off and do the thing that inspires you. Don't do that because it's risky.
Right.
Like do this thing will drain your soul but keep your bank account looking healthy, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean we're not condoning, hey, just throw caution to the wind and go out and be a fool and take these giant gambles that there's no way you can win. It has to be educated. You have to, it's like a promoter. It's when you're a promoter, you put money forward to put a show on.
Yeah.
And you have to have faith that the people are going to come and buy the tickets. And it's a risk. But, you don't just say, well, let me make an unrealistic risk that will never work out. You have to book people that have a draw and actually promote and work to get people to come. That's not to say, hey, quit your job and go out and,
just you do you.
Be a lounge singer, because that's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Right. No, that's the key to that. It's a delicate balance. You have to have something that you really believe in.
Yeah.
And also the knowledge, like a business acumen, which, is not the first thing that people think about with party promoters. But you really are terrific business people. You have to be. And it's very much about going with your instinct.
Yeah. I think that leads you to success. You have to have your finger on the pulse of the city and the community and give them something that not only inspires you, but what they want.
Totally.
And also in relation to what else is happening in the city. You can't serve up the same thing that's happening 3 other places, because then you'll just be competing. And there's a lot kind of to it. I don't know. I have to acknowledge that even still, like those risks that Drac was talking about, and I think at various points we inspire each other to continue to take those risks. That's the point, though. The risk, you have to get used to it. You have to get used to being committed to the change that you want to make, being committed to new ideas, taking the risks, being uncomfortable, and potentially reaping the rewards like over and over. It's not like hey, I'll do this once or twice and then I get to that place where everything is cool and I'll never have to do that again. It's like you have to get comfortable being in that very uncomfortable space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to speak too on the personal fear, because that's something that we talk about in the show a lot.
Yeah.
And I think, especially with some of the competitors on our show, they're very raw, they're punk rock. They had, untraditional upbringings, especially with them being kind of freakier people. Society definitely shunned them. Some of their families shunned them. And I feel like it caused them to bottle up and create shells around them, which are things that the two of us have experienced too in our life. So we've sort of in our career had to step outside of that and face those fears so many times, and sort of like realize our own power and kind of reclaim that. And that's what we're really trying to. Of course, it's fun to watch drag queens do crazy shit on TV. So don't get me wrong. That's motivator number 1. Yeah. But motivator number 2 is to push them. Don't take yourself so seriously, for example, or take this risk. It's not, the scariness is temporary, and once you overcome it, you empower yourself so much,
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of like that's what the fear that we put them through is. That's what it's about. We're trying to get them to, and it's such a short period of time too, or like if you left a performer for a year on their own, how much are they going to challenge themselves? Probably not a lot typically, but you come on our show and you're going to challenge yourself on the daily. And a lot of them leave and say, I am a different performer now by the time the show airs.
It's kind of amazing to see that. It's maybe an unexpected byproduct of the show. Like even now, we had a lunch meeting with our assistant yesterday, and just to know, like one of the contestants on this current season is literally in the cocoon right now, undergoing the process of transformation.
Oh, okay.
You can see exactly what the show has ignited, and there's going to be a shedding of so many old things because the transformation is both physical and mental, and it's happening like right now.
And so how rewarding is that for you too?
It's pretty rewarding. It is, because it's nice to be able to help them do that, you know?
Sure.
Especially the image of us is like we're these mean overlords that's tormenting them. And that's certainly there, but there is a behind the scenes, we really care about them, and we really do want to help them. We're fans of everyone that we cast.
Right.
And we see them and we're like, wow, could you imagine if they had this platform, or if they did this, or if they just changed this way or that, and we sort of try to inspire that in them because we're proud of them. We want to see them elevate their
on
art.
some level too. Like, I feel like we would have loved, at least I'll speak for myself. I would have loved a character to come into my life when I was in my early 20s and say, I recognize what you're doing. I love it. Here's a way for more people to see it.
Yeah.
But just think about this. All these strings that you have attached, here's some scissors, cut them.
Sure.
And just to say that to me, because not everybody needs that. I don't know that Drac really needs that. You are a different type of personality, and I think that you're much more well built and well defined.
Yeah, I would have told that person to fuck off.
You would have. I know you would have. But at that period in my life, I would have really appreciated that. So I do take pride, and I'm happy, and I'm also sad at the same time that that's happening for someone else. It's kind of a mixed bag of emotions for me.
But I think the ultimate gift, right, is to feel like you can help facilitate someone's growth or exposure to themselves of themselves.
Well, it's like when you see potential in someone, it's exciting to try to help them, you know?
It is the Halloween season, and we do love to explore the dark side and the motivation behind some of the wicked people in pop culture. The new podcast Villains from the Parcast Network highlights the psychological, political, and emotional factors that spawn both real and fictional villains. Evil masterminds, madmen, and savages. For every hero, there is a villain. And every Friday, Villains focuses on a different villain. For the fictional entries, the show delves into the social influences that led to the character's development and creation. And for the real-life villains, well, you'll learn the true story of their dark deeds and hear what drove them to evil. Villains features episodes on a variety of bad guys, from the Joker to Charles Manson to Darth Vader and Pablo Escobar. So tap into this party by going to follow Villains for free on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Or, of course, you can always visit parcast.com/villains and listen now.
Here's the deal. When we started out in entertainment, we worked behind the scenes. So we did all the planning. We did all the work. We did all the hard work. You know,
Sure.
We did the lighting. We did the setup. We would literally go into clubs and build these environments. We did construction and everything you could think of. And we created a host for our night, and we built up this Miss Kitty character, and we designed her costumes and told her what to say. And
we had the
everything.
maid and just everything.
And we worked 80 hours a week for this one night. It was like a theatrical experience. It was a nightclub, but it was theater. So we spent all our time doing that. At some point, and this was 6 years into it, once it was very established, our host had to quit the night, which her father was going through some stuff, and she had to leave the city. So we were sort of left like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And we've always been, theatrical differently in our own right. When I was younger, I would sing, and he did theater and stuff. And those things sort of got pushed to the wayside because we found other creative outlets.
Sure.
So we started building these fantasy environments, and we acted in the shows and stuff too, but not as ourselves. So we did all these stage shows at our nights, but we would change costumes and characters constantly. So it wasn't like, I'm the Boulet Brothers. It was just like we were just rando actors, and
you were part of the machinery, if you will,
like a troupe,
created.
A troupe, yeah.
Sure,
so we
exactly.
changed hats literally 3 times a night. So I might go from, I'm a construction worker, I'm a prostitute, I'm a schoolboy, I'm a schoolgirl. Like,
Right.
It kind of didn't matter.
and that you could be sort of fearless for some reason because you were sort of for the greater good. It wasn't about yourself, presenting yourself. So when
Oh God, those days were so fun.
I know it was
So fun.
So when she disappeared, we sort of were left in a weird position because we didn't have our masthead. We didn't have our character.
Yeah.
It was like Drag Race without RuPaul, you know?
Totally,
And
yeah.
so, and the crowd wasn't, and this is something that was a whole community. People came every Friday night. It was a huge thing. So we had to develop characters for ourselves and step out and host the night ourselves because we tried guest host and God love them. They did the best they could, but the crowd was just like, no. They were like, where's Miss Kitty? Like, fuck these people. Yeah, it was like they weren't
these
having
assholes
it.
thinking that they're gonna,
Yeah, they weren't having it. So then we were like, well, they won't say that if we step out and do it because it's our fucking event, you know?
Right.
So we developed our own characters and we came out. And that was the thing about fear. At that time, we had been working behind the scenes so much. I was fucking terrified to talk on a microphone.
Sure, I can imagine.
How many words do you think you said during?
I mean, very few.
Like for the first couple of good whiles, it was like I would say everything, and even for me, I was like, okay, we have to jump in, swim or die. You know,
so right.
We're hosting, and I'm hosting, and the drag hadn't developed to what it ultimately become.
What would it look like, kind of around the origin time?
Way more
of the character.
Very kind of French, like gender hat, kind of like big powdered wigs, but a lot of makeup.
Okay,
it was
a little Madonna Vogue video look, kind of.
Yeah,
that was the vibe.
But you would barely speak at that time.
So I was terrified, and I when I was younger, I would.
And now look, we can't shut her up.
See, overcome your fears. This is what we're talking about.
But this is exactly this actually is what I'm talking about. So I was like, in my heart, I'm a performer. I like to perform. I like to sing and do all these things. But I had sort of built up these walls, and I didn't realize it until I had to step out there, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is what I love and I can't do it. And why is that? So I had to really examine what stopped me from doing that in my head and unlearn those things and sort of face my own fear. And now, you can see where we are now in our life, and we perform and host and do all kinds of crazy things. And we have for years. But when I see that in someone else, I'm like, I'm not going to fucking let you do that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about with some of these competitors.
Sure. And I think the queer family in general. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Being visible can be really scary. It's kind of vulnerable, but I know it also, like this show, inspires people and kind of gives them like a light to follow. I think Dragula also gives people like a light to follow. Many things serve that function, but just kind of like having the balls to do you unapologetically and not really look for people to give you that affirmation that I think a lot of people need is punk. It's scary, you know. It is.
It's that funny thing too where you think, oh, I can't do that, and you've internalized things from your youth or bullies or whatever it is, and weirdly it just becomes what you think is the norm, like you mentioned earlier, the 9-to-5 norm, that whole premise, right? You buy into these things, and then once you unlock that and pull it away, not only do you feel more free, you realize that, wait, no, this is the way.
Yeah.
And we're actually taping this on National Coming Out Day, and my friend Rod Thomas of Bright Light, I'd like to play this little Instagram video that he posted, because I think it's very touching.
Hello. It's National Coming Out Day, and I am about to open for Cher tonight at the SAP Arena in Mannheim, which is probably the gayest thing I could possibly do on this day. I wanted to make a quick note just to say that coming out is obviously not easy for everybody. I really didn't have a good time coming out, so it's important to remember, especially in these weird political times, that it's a difficult journey for a lot of people, but you really have to be strong and be true to who you are. Really, like, all of these things you can do in your life only come if you let people see who you actually are. And that doesn't mean you have to pretend to be more confident than you are. It just means like finding peace within yourself and letting people see who you are so you can connect with the right people along the way. Be strong, be yourself, and your community will find you and accept you, and you'll have a fantastic time. You might even do something as insane as this one day.
Brilliant.
Right? Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. And it's very in line with what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So around the time that you became the performer, and you'd mentioned earlier about the strings that you cut, the same kind of thing, or is it the strings, would you say, was something else?
I think it's about being confident within yourself and not needing those around you to affirm, like, yes, you're doing well, or I approve of this, or, your support system is there for you, pushing you kind of in the direction you should or shouldn't go in.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that programming happens when you're young. It could be your family, it could be bullies, it could be a sibling or whoever tells you should do this, you shouldn't do that. What are you doing with that? And like guilt comes in. And I think, God, when I see that happen to a child, it's like a knife in my chest.
Yeah.
I think
because it activates your memory, your sense memory, if you will, of that. Yeah. What were each of your childhoods like? Now you answer for each other.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just kidding. I would be so we'll start with you.
I think my childhood was a mixed bag. I had like I don't think it was all, like I said, all good or all bad. I had a support system, but it was limited, and it was full of confusion because of religious influences.
Sure.
And I'd say my dad wasn't the most educated person. He's an immigrant, so I'm first generation here.
From where?
From Greece. There's a very heavy influence there from like an Orthodox background, which is like just riddled with both superstition and guilt.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So thus my obsession with like dark-sided things and like, I think religious imagery is really powerful, especially to a child. And it can be fantastic and magic, but it's going to also be kind of horrifying.
Sure.
But I was also encouraged too with my creativity. So because I've always been like really creative, whether it be like making things or painting, dance, like I was like the oldest kid in my neighborhood. I made everybody like dress up in costumes. We're doing shows and like, I'm going to lead you through the woods and you're going to be the hunter and I'm going to be this monster. And like, I was doing shit like that, like all the time.
I feel like our clubs are basically that. So you're basically doing the same thing.
Seriously, yes.
And like, now the show is the elevator.
My brother.
And you're going back to the woods with the show. You can't do that at the club so easily. So
yeah.
Bingo.
I don't think things just transform and you can do the same type of things I was doing when I was 9. Now I'm doing them on like TV.
With sclera lenses.
Yes, exactly.
And then what about you?
I grew up in the South. So my family, it's very like mountain people, like Appalachia kind of, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And not to say, my parents a little less so, but, their parents and the family around us.
And the surrounding town, too, that can be vibe.
It was very rural, very unlike what people probably would expect that I would grow up in. So it was, it could be hard, you know what I mean? Of course, there was no gay people in my town at all. And
same, by the way.
Yeah, there was no gay people around. The idea of a drag queen or anything like that was basically paraded about as some sort of example of a pervert or something.
Sure.
Something terrible that you wouldn't want to be associated with, you know? But I was always very independent. I really didn't give a shit, you know? I mean, internally, I don't know. But on the outside, it never deterred me from being me. When I was young, I had like this huge basement in my house that was just like, looked like, Elvira's house or something. It was just like filled with all this crazy occult stuff and comic books. And I wrote and, I would always write and draw. I mean, I spent years of my life just writing and drawing by myself. That's what I did. And so, it's weird. We recently came across something I found. I had some stuff packed away and we moved. And I found this banner that I made, and it was when I was young in school,
kind of like a vision board.
Yeah, it was like and you had to put things that you liked or whatever, and you had to cut out things and glue them, and it was really bizarre because it looked like Dracula.
No, literally, it was like a 25-year prophecy from a child.
Isn't it amazing though? Like if you do look back, you'll see that things that you were interested in as a kid either manifest now, or there's like your tastes are kind of your tastes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I think the trick going back to like being visible and like it's tied with coming out and it's tied with not needing affirmation and following that inner voice is like when you become an adult, I think the happiest adults listen to that child inspiration and continue to carry that, however it manifests as an adult. And I think the most unhappy people don't and are listening to everybody else.
And they crush that part of themselves down. And that also leads to terrible resentment from people who do crush that down towards the people who
don't. Exactly. Because they
wish
they could have it themselves. And I think it leads to like abuse and aggression and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. If more people were able to follow their guiding light inside, they'd be a lot nicer to deal with.
It's an unexpected outcome of us doing the show is we get tons of messages from people that are inspired to live their authentic self off of the show. And initially, I didn't understand it. Initially, when we started getting it, I was like, the fuck are they talking about? I was like,
no, honestly.
Why? Because I threw Meep off a cliff? Like, okay, sure. I didn't
Is this for our show? They're watching our show.
I was like, wait a minute. But I totally get it. Now, I get it as time goes by. And I meet them and I say, oh, yeah, because I forget what it was like to live and exist in those environments and how
isolated.
You have nothing to inspire you or look to for strength,
or even relate to like, oh, I see myself in this person, or I see a part of myself in that group of people. And
because it's discouraging. I think about when I was growing up and there was nothing like that. And I mean, as far as encouragement towards me when I was young, there was negative 1,000. I mean, it would just be like, you're terrible. you're the creature in our basement, basically. You know,
He's
we hope you don't die, but that's about it.
Sad.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
And so, but you know, I remember I used to like get in my car and drive like 2.5 hours away to rent John Waters movies because you had to go to the secret place to get them because it was like, you know, a porn movie basically.
Right.
And it wasn't.
It's basically in the back room to get those. Yeah.
So it was like, you know, that's what it was like. So now I can see in retrospect, I'm like, okay, these people are seeing that we're living I'm just so used to it at this point. I don't, you know, I didn't see it at first, but it is also still fun to throw a meatball off of
a club. Yeah.
That's the great thing, right? There's fun and there's a spiritual fulfillment.
Exactly.
Do you remember what the first things were that you saw that were pieces of culture that you did feel represented in, or you saw them and went, I want that? You know, you kind of have a vague idea when you're a kid.
I think that, Rocky Horror was a monumental moment. And even that sexual scene where Frankenfurter's in like that veiled bed and like they, you know, Brad and Janet both come in. I was like, stop everything. Just stop everything right there.
Is there an informational pamphlet on it? Can I have a...
I'm like, let's research that scene. No, because I also grew up in a small town where how many out people were there? 0. You know? And I was involved with like a summer theater where I was a teenager. And I was involved with like the summer stock theaters at this dinner theater. Yeah. And there were gay men there for the first time I saw, you know, gay men in my life. And I probably was like...
In the theater? Are you sure? I'm not...
I promise you. I know it's so weird. I know. But I was so excited because I was cast in that show and my dad would refuse to come.
Really?
Yeah. He just wouldn't show up. And why? Because there's gay guys in that show, you know? And so it's just like this kind of constant conflict, you know, inside where you're encouraged to follow your creativity, but then there's like this inherent guilt and like intrinsic to the whole experience. So you're doing something that really lights your inner fire, but then you're kind of feeling guilty and like there's something bad about you or what you're doing. You know, it's pretty kind of twisted.
It is twisted, and it takes a long time to work that out.
Yeah,
too, because it just becomes like the weather. You're just sort of used to this being the oppressive vibe.
Yeah,
that's going on.
You know what was weird too? I feel like horror movies. I loved horror movies as a young kid, and that idea that, you know, cross-dressing or being gay, you're like a monster it comes across in so many horror movies. You know, if you look back at them,
it does.
You know, like Psycho and then you find out, oh, this is the cross-dressing murderer. And you're like, you know, and you don't think about it, but you're like, oh, I'm that freak. That is me. Okay, so they treat me like this because I am that. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a weird thing we were talking about this the other day and how that comes up so much in queer horror, you know.
Yeah. In horror in general.
Yeah, horror in general.
No, it really does.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
You know, there's a fascinating movie called Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker. Are you familiar with that one? I don't know that, no. I think you'd really like it. Sort of an anti-homophobia through line in it. Jimmy McNichol stars in it. I think Bo Svensson is the sheriff. But anyway, I'll rustle up a copy and send it over to you.
Yeah, I'm interested. Please do. Yeah.
I want to see that Nightmare on Elm Street documentary about...
We saw that.
Oh, Scream Queen, I think
Scream
it's called?
Queen, yeah. We went to the screening. Where was that? It was at not the Egyptian.
It's it was part of the Outfest.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we got to meet, was it Mark Patton and Robert Englund was there, and we're kind of friends of a friends with the guys who produced that. Really exciting. And honestly, I think I kind of like didn't really get it when I was too young to understand. And I wasn't too young to understand how fierce Taryn was when Freddie, like, you know, shot her up with like 10 needles of heroin in her arm in that bad dream. So I was like, yes, this bitch is fierce. I love this scene. But I didn't really get the homophobic overtones from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And now I've since rewatched it since we went and watched Scream Queen, and I'm like, oh, this is like she gay. She very gay.
I have to rewatch that one. That's one of the ones that I haven't seen, I think, because as a kid I didn't care for it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it probably just wasn't on any of our radars at the time.
Right.
But there is kind of a cool moment where literally, you know, Mark Patton's character is kind of like he's being tortured through the whole film, and I mean there is like tons of like male guys, the naked coach who's actually a gay guy who goes to like the leather bar, and he's like they're wrestling in the field fighting each other and their pants come down with like jock straps on.
It's complete. It refreshed my memory when we watched it. I was like,
it's so queer. But there's a moment where Freddie, where Mark, he's like where the main character, I forget the character name, but Mark character's Patton is like writhing on the ground in pain, and Freddy literally comes out from inside of him, rips open his stomach, and you see the claws come through where the monster is coming out.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, that's wild. I'm going to have to rewatch that.
Yeah. So that theme is like prevalent in a lot of horror. It's interesting.
What about other movies? Back to the original, kind of the root question here. Movies where you recognized yourself or
saw that thing, that sort of
Rocky
vague
Horror,
thing. Yeah.
Rocky Horror definitely was, because I remember I was like, okay, this is like kind of vampiric. I mean, honestly, I feel like I was like Frankenfurter as a kid, like literally. I'm like, this is my life. Okay, thanks. I'm just not from space.
Well, and now
because I think there's all these like straight, normal people around me that I hung out with, and of course we, did things that they wouldn't tell anybody else.
Sure, right.
But no, I'm watching like there's this vampire castle, and I'm like, are the controllers on that weird mad scientist thing dildos? I'm like, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, wait a minute, this is different.
Hang on here. Yeah.
So that, and then John Waters' movie, absolutely 100% were like super influential.
Totally. Do you remember the first John Waters movie you saw?
I think I saw. God, why can't I think of the name of where she was the lobster?
Oh, Multiple Maniacs.
Yeah, Multiple Maniacs. Yeah.
And that's amazing for a first one.
Well, I think that stuff motivated us too to make the show, because I was like, oh, you can make a show. You know what I mean? I wasn't like,
you can
we
literally
can make
do
a
whatever
show.
you want.
Yeah, exactly. I was
exactly.
like, he made this show with $20. I got $200. We can do this.
We got like 10 times the amount. We're good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
But, because you saw the heart in those movies. You're like, they believe in this. It takes you on a fantasy ride, and the characters are so amazing. I mean, it's kind of like we talk about Electroclash as a musical genre.
It's very similar.
It's very similar, and that's very similar to what we do.
It is. It's very punk, because when you started Dragula, your budget was what? It was very low, right?
Very low. In fact, like that first season, like going back to your initial, one of your initial comments about just being inspired enough and in facing your fear and doing things, that was a cliff we jumped off of. We just invested in our own money to create season 1,
which is a scary thing to do.
It is very scary.
Because we had been doing nightclubs forever.
Yeah.
And we said, we could have pitched the show. Of course, we could have said, here's the concept. Let's go to these networks and pitch it. It was so fucking weird that it's like, no one's
going to even look. I mean, how do you even describe it?
Yeah, we would look at each other and say, I know this show's going to get huge, but I cannot convince a TV executive that this is going to happen.
Right.
There was this moment where I was like, look at me, because Drac was like stressing, and that's part of her reality. And I'm like, look at me. We don't need to be fearful of this. Like, we've been saving, we've been working so hard. We have this amazing idea. What else do you invest in if you can't invest in something that you really believe in?
Right.
Like, what are we saving our money for?
Yeah, you sold me on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
We're like, what? This is what would make us happy. So we did it. And after that, we kind of just had this gut. I was like, this is gonna work. Like, I just know it's gonna work. And so we just kind of kept going forward. Of course, we kept getting tested, because the TV industry is horrible, and
the real extermination.
That's what I mean. I'm not kidding you. When we're there on set and we're filming, and the competitors will get scared or whatever, and we often joke, those of us on the producer team, I'm like, this is so much easier than the shit that I'm having. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Would you guys like to
stab
swap?
me up, bitch. Like, I was like, I'll do that any day of the week.
It only lasts 5 minutes. I've been in like this 2-year torture to try to get this goddamn season out.
I was like, I will do every extermination right now, live, if someone would go and deal with this lawyer. Like,
give me the big jar of bugs and tattoo me whatever the hell you want, and feed me blood. You talk to the guys. Yeah.
Well, that stuff too is like, with us, the clubs that we came on was very punk and crazy and fetishy, and I'm like, all that's like tattoos and piercings and all that crazy shit. I'm like, we used to do all that stuff on stage all the time. So it's like, to us, it's nothing. And it's weird, because some people say like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this or that to them. I'm like, well, most of them have done it already, but whatever, that's cool. Yeah, it's just the different worlds that you come. It's different kind of drag experience where we come from than most drag queens come from. You don't usually get pierced at Hamburger Mary's, but not in that way.
I'm just imagining the poster, get pierced, Hamburger Mary's. But I like also that when it's time for the floor show, you say, we don't, how do you say it again?
We're not here to judge your drag. Drag is subjective. Drag is art and art is subjective.
I'm glad that you messed it up too, because I started to stumble
It's
on
her
it.
line.
Like, okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, I love the ethos of that.
Yeah, because you know why? Because it's like, when we get people the competitors lined up, I'm not there as a judge to say, I am the best makeup artist, I am the best lip syncer, I am the best. It's not any of that.
She's not there to say that. I am. Oh my God.
So you said you each have your roles, right? Yeah, there
exactly.
you go.
So, but I want people, viewers at home and other aspiring drag artists to know that we're not there saying your drag sucks or it's bad, because it's not. Their drag is so different. How do you compare, Disasterina to Hollow Eve or to Melissa Be Fierce? Like, it's impossible. They're so different.
Sure.
Even Meatball, it's such an amazing character again, but they all have their different strengths. So we're not sitting there saying we're better than you and we're telling you how it is. We're just saying we have designed a competition. It's like a race, know. Which one of you is going to come out on top, and that's, so we want people to understand that we're not judging their drag. We're judging how they use their drag to adapt to the challenges that
that's something we had to learn though, too, because we assumed that people knew, hey, we're creating this inclusive show. This is a show where you can we're showing you the underbelly.
Sure.
What we see as like the real experience. Like if you were going to go to a club in any city, even worldwide, you'd see some crazy drag shit and you would laugh and you'd be scared and it would be all these things, but maybe not what we see on mainstream drag TV. Wink, wink. But we assume that everybody would understand that we're coming from a good place. And some of the language that we chose in season 2, people showed us a lesson that we needed to learn where this might come across as judgmental or as if we're coming from like some kind of superior position. And we do not feel that way at all. So we made it a point to put that into the language of season 3, because that's what we really do believe. And we just needed to say it to make sure that everybody heard it so that there weren't annoying people getting triggered every fucking episode. We can do what we want to do.
Sounds like you have a little bit of experience with some feedback on that sort of thing.
I think now we're so good with it, but season 2, I think, was so much bigger, and it was our first experience getting exposed on that kind of level to mass audiences and internet trolls. Oh,
yeah.
So no, but I wanted to answer. I'm like, oh my God, well, they think this or that's happening. We have to answer that. And I'm like, if I did that, that's all I would do. I mean, it's like everybody has an opinion about everything, and okay, that's what. And then you have to realize, and the easiest way, the way I was able to absorb it is to say, okay. And we sat and talked, and even with the other producers, because they took it personally too. They're like, damn, we're doing this inclusive show and we're getting shredded.
Totally.
And I'm like, look, when we all sit down, our guilty pleasure is like the Real Housewives. It's like,
listen, I'm the biggest Real Housewives.
Oh my God, we live.
But now Lisa's gone. What the fuck?
Well, hold on,
okay, we'll get to that. We'll get back to that.
So this is how we learned to deal, because I said, well, we watched that show and then we sit here in the living room, we're like, oh, this one's a bitch or this one's that, and how funny is that?
Or like, I hate.
Yeah, but then we don't really hate the show. We love the show.
We love the show.
Yeah.
But we also enjoy kind of shredding the show a little bit. Or like, why this or why that? Or she's stupid. What a terrible addition to the cast. Or, oh God, they got rid of her. How could they do that? She was my favorite. And we're basically just doing what other people who are also passionate about our show do. That's when we realized,
like, oh, this is not our real person they're talking about. It's this show.
It's a great thing to realize that that's what it is. Yeah. That it's a show, but because it's your show, it's hard to parse that out.
Yeah.
And see, Real Housewives is an inspiration. I just want to put that out there. But
I back that up fully.
Especially season 1 of any of the Housewives before they're self-aware.
Season 1, Camille.
Yeah. Exactly. But she came back. She reared her ugly head.
No, see, I'm a little spotty on the last 2 seasons.
Okay, well, when you get to the most recent season, like the story producers let her out of the bag again, because I'm convinced that they've been editing the shit out of her for years, because season 1 Camille, arguably the best Camille. Camille living her best life. She has come back.
She came back, but then they didn't bring her back for the new season.
It's surprising.
I couldn't believe it.
What?
They didn't bring. She came back full force, and I was like, okay, she's the most interesting person on the show now again, because it's amazing. She's being real, even though she's whatever,
and stirring all kinds of shit.
Starting all kinds of trouble, and they didn't bring her back, and I couldn't believe it.
We thought that because Lisa exited like 50% of the way through the season, they were bringing out more and more Camille. We were like, oh, I see where this is going, because maybe Lisa won't renew, and now Camille, they're just going to let her be full force, and she can battle.
Exactly. Bring her back. They put these 2 new people on that, the viewers don't know yet, and I don't think they're going to be mega interesting, because usually the first season people get brought on other than Dorinda. Dorinda was pretty good.
Dorinda was amazing.
Season. Yeah, and it's actually funny. I have yet to see most of New York. My mom is constantly like, Greg, you have to watch
You're
New
really
York.
missing out.
I know. Listen, I'm going to dive right into that soon. That's the
next
one.
Just watch Scary Island episode first.
Oh my God. I've heard about that. And people say,
that is the best.
I've heard that, and someone else said, start with season 3.
Yeah.
Which one is that? Which one is 3?
The first couple of seasons weren't that good, but 3 is, I think, when they go to Scary Island.
I think that might be right because I remember the person was like, okay, like you have too much to catch up on. And they know how much I love it. I actually used to do a podcast about Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, okay. So you love your reality TV too.
Oh,
yes.
absolutely.
But the Housewives is such a thing for us. Like in our house, we stand almost all of the franchises too.
I love that. That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
It's our getaway, you know.
No,
we're like,
right.
when there's a new episode on and it's like 12:30 at night, and we're just like, oh, let's just sit in front of the couch, put on, you know, because we don't call it like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Like Beverly Hills is like Lisa, or like let's watch Kyle.
Totally.
And then when we're like, if
New
it's
York is Dorinda.
New York has become Dorinda for us. Yeah, like let's watch Nene.
Nene is Atlanta.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so cute. It's like my stories. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing.
Totally.
I still think New Jersey, like the first season of New Jersey, is like, because they were really related. So again, this were like real reality TV.
Totally.
They couldn't fake it, you know?
Yeah, they didn't even know how, and like they didn't have their hair together and all that stuff for TV. I love
when they do the flashbacks too, because we're like, oh, look at all the work she's had. Like she's like in this full fantasy now, but season 1, you're like, ooh, you're busted.
Yeah, and New Jersey, I remember pitching that to my mom. I was like, listen, you have to watch it. I was like, start with the one where she flips the table at the christening.
Yeah,
because it's like,
so
you know, family drama is unlike any drama.
That's the thing, and I could just watch that for hours and hours.
Well, I think that was what was good about Beverly Hills is Kyle and her sister Kim
my God.
are related.
The limo fight's one of the greatest moments in all
my
television.
fucking house.
Oh my God! Did you hear what you just said to me? You better take that back. Oh, my husband's treated you like a goddamn second wife. You
hear what you said? You are sick and you are an alcoholic.
There, I said it.
What
did she? Oh my God!
The best when they had that extended
season 4. The Real Housewives of Transylvania.
That's great. What other shows do you enjoy?
Our newest addiction is the show. I don't know what the first show, though. This is like a double spinoff, but it's like 90 Day Fiance before the 90 days.
Do you know that one?
Now, see, I haven't seen 90 Day Fiance. I've been told about it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's real.
I stand by it. 90 Day Fiance is when an American brings someone from another country and they have 90 days on their visa to decide, like, I'm going to marry this person.
Right.
But the before the 90 day spinoff is just role reverse. So you have Americans going to other countries, and it's their experience, kind of like, God, one of them is so sick too. Like this guy, this like nerd guy from like Missouri or something, dates this girl who falls for this girl in like Brazil, but she doesn't live in like Sao Paulo or something. She lives like up in this Amazonian river. Like how the hell does she even have a fucking signal to communicate with them?
Right.
So he like takes his trunk to the plane, to the train, to the automobile, like over the river, through the woods, up the Amazon. Like seriously, it's like a 3-day trek for him to even find her. And they live like in her house. It's like a thatched roof. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, he's getting like shot at by these like guerrilla soldiers. I mean, it really, like the camera crew was running. They were getting shot at.
Oh my God.
It's really good reality TV.
She gets mugged for her cell phone on camera by this guy with a machete.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he runs off into the woods, and then the local authorities come through and start firing into the woods. But this is on film. This is like a reality television show. It's like really crazy.
That's wild. I'm gonna have to check that out.
They can only communicate via app.
Oh yeah, because they don't speak each other's language.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they type back and forth and read it.
It's crazy.
So he's obsessed.
Oh yeah. And he's, of course, now a couple of years after the show came out, they find out all this crazy stuff about him, and he used to be in prison and all kinds of
his previous like relationship. She has a restraining order against him and like all this kind of stuff.
So it's great and it's very real. But also Bad Girls Club in the beginning, we were huge fans of that too. Again, very like raw. You know, people acting crazy. Like,
totally different tangent.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies when I was a kid was The Dark Crystal.
The
new Dark Crystal series, like
God, I heard it's incredible.
It's amazing. It is gorgeous. It really expands on the mythology and the whole like history of that universe that was created. It's so good.
And just a few more movies, because I mean, I just feel like, but there's such a cornucopia of horror references in Dracula. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And you've synthesized things from all different places. So it's not like you look at it and go, that's derivative of this. You watch it and go, oh, they know all the stuff about horror movies.
Right.
Yeah. But we also weave in a lot of like queer references like Mommy Dearest and Death Becomes Her, and these moments where we just kind of get off on the things that we love. And it creates this like bizarro tapestry of like horror and queer, camp, scary vulgarity, you know, which is like, I think the tone that we love to hit.
That's the show is completely based off of our history. That's the entire show. It's just inside joke after inside joke after inside joke.
Yeah.
You know, if you look back, even silly things like the D&D challenge, you know, that we just did recently, we both, you know, played D&D when we were kids.
I had a feeling.
Dungeon Masters.
I was like, I had everything. I mean, there was a point in my life where you couldn't fucking touch me. I'm like, excuse me, what? No, that Manticore is consisted of 3 other characters. She has a death breath weapon, a D6 attack on her frontal claws. I mean, really, I could like break it down.
But then even when we were doing Miss Kitty's and it was like Crazy Fetish Club, you know, we did this, and the shows were so silly and wrong and amazing, but we made them because we talked to our friend the other day that acted in one of the shows. We had them do a D&D show where they basically were like nerd kids that did D&D, and they like summoned the devil accidentally, and then they started having sex and killing each other. So it's like consistent.
Just years later, and it's like remanifesting that thing we were riffing on at the beginning. Yeah.
It's another version of the thing that adage, like the thing that you're made to feel less than about when you're younger.
Oh yeah.
Turns out to be the thing that you're celebrated for.
Yeah.
If you follow that, you know, that sort of guiding light that we talked about before.
Yeah, I almost feel like you have definitely absolutely said that in previous interviews, where the thing that you were shamed for is now the thing that you're celebrated for.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, a new horror movie that I know we both really enjoyed, and now we've gotten to kind of bring one of the stars onto this season of the show, was Hereditary.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen
sadly,
it?
I'm behind. Do you see that box set over there? That is what's been consuming my life.
Murder, She Wrote. Oh my God, yes, queen.
What the resurgence of Murder, She
I
Wrote?
don't know.
You're like the 5th person that's
Really?
like obsessed with it right now.
It's well, Christine was on, and Christine has a full, not Angela Lansbury, but Jessica
I thought you
Fletcher
were saying
tattoo.
she was on Murder, She Wrote. I was like, I didn't see that episode.
Christine doesn't mention her age, but you know, she was really got around back then. Yeah.
Totally. She's been around the block seven or 8 times.
I want to see that show.
Oh my God. I was talking to Christine about maybe doing a Murder, She Wrote podcast, like a little side thing where if you ever want to come on
Is
that.
she into it? Is she into
she was like, I'm on. The second you do it.
No, I mean, is
I'm
she
on.
obsessed with like Murder, She Wrote?
She has a Jessica Fletcher tattoo, not an Angela Lansbury tattoo. It is a Jessica Fletcher tattoo. I was actually with my friends Cherry and Sophie, who've been on the show, and at a nail salon. On the TV was the episode with Sean Cassidy, who I'm a big fan of. And I was like, hey, oh yeah, Murder, She Wrote. And then I was on a plane. I caught 2 episodes, the one where she's like involved in solving a murder in the virtual reality world, which is amazing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh yeah, I got to get into this. The first 5 seasons are on Amazon Prime. Right around the halfway mark of season 4, I was like, I got to buy the box set because I'm going to run out soon.
That's kind of amazing. And it sounds like the universe has been giving you signals over and over like, Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah,
Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah,
Murder,
exactly.
She Wrote.
Exactly. Look over here. Look over
You're
here.
going to solve a crime at one day. And all these,
I think you're right.
Yeah, you're going to learn all these things that you can
That's
use
how
to
it
solve.
works.
Totally. I'll be like, were there powder burns on his hand because he might have shot the gun? You know, all that stuff.
Exactly. You just need like a nice grandma shawl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you
Totally.
can feel in character when you're doing it. Otherwise, what's the point?
But Hereditary and a few other modern films, I'll say, like including the new Suspiria, which is not new anymore. Still haven't seen it. Yeah.
So
We're
good.
very into that sort of slow drone horror right now. And it was cool because Millie Shapiro, who's a star on Hereditary, was a judge on our show. So super fun to have her on.
Really cool. She came to our Halloween show in Boston last year, which we're redoing this year, which Katya will be a part of again.
Exactly, right. I'm from Boston as well.
Oh,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love being there. I'm from Connecticut originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
It was nice to be back in the Northeast at that time of year, my favorite time of year.
That's when it really works.
Feel-
Massachusetts,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
January, no,
Few more months
no
and you're
thanks.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But Halloween time, perfect.
And she came to our meet and greet line, and I was like, this is the little girl from Hereditary. She's here with me. I'm like, hello, darling. And she's like, I'm a really big fan of the show. And we're like, then the gears just started like click, 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 click. And, you know, we made it happen.
There's kind of a magic to the show like that. That's also fuels us to take these risks that we talk about, is that things seem to happen for the show, knock on wood,
I know.
that sometimes...
That might be particle board. I'm not
I'll
sure.
take it.
We'll
It's
find.
fine.
Okay.
It's pressed. At some point, it was wood derivative.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen. And they work out, and these paths kind of open, and that's what makes us know. I'm like, this is right, because this wouldn't happen. You know, the nun, the Bonnie Aarons who played the nun, she contacted us about being on the show as a judge, which was a great sign for us. Like, wow, okay, must be doing something right.
Totally, yeah.
And a lot of the horror world is coming to us now to get involved, because a lot of times, you know, I don't think people that work in horror are necessarily billionaires, but they love their craft.
Yeah.
And that's exciting, because I'm like, these people are coming to us to work on the show because they love the show and they love horror, and that makes us very excited because we love to work with other artists. We're stuck with business people so much out of the day that we don't want to be. You know, so it's really refreshing to have people come to you that are creative, that want to get involved.
Southern California is a great place to be too, because there's so many amazing events like Monsterpalooza and Midsummer Scream.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Midscream. What the hell, am I saying it right?
Midsummer Scream.
Yes, Midsummer Scream. It's in Long Beach. We just went this summer, and I think it's only the second year they're doing it. I could be wrong on that, but it's the off-season kind of Halloween convention. So we drove down there with a few friends, you know, head to toe black. We're ready to roll. It's like 95 degrees out. Like, holy shit, get me in this convention. We're driving down the highway and I'm like, oh my God, look at that fucking line. And there was, I mean, it was
bigger than DragCon.
Massive.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
We got in there and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. It's July, but this place is dark. They had haunts in there. Like, and they were just selling everything spooky, ooky, witchy, poo.
Mazes.
Like, we were just so excited. And now they're sponsoring our Halloween ball, which is going to be happening at the end of the month.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to that. Trixie Mattel, right?
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Top 3 from the show. We're going to be there.
It's going to be really awesome.
There's also a lot of really innovative clubs that are happening right now in Los Angeles that we bring together. Like, we usually bring a few each year. And this year we have some really fun ones. We have Snap Out of It, which is House of Avalon's event that they throw at Mickey's. We have Jolene, which is like a sort of trans stripper night that they do at Cheetah's, which is really fun. And there's just a lot of really great people involved. So I think it's going to be a really great
for event. Sure. God, but why did I bring up the Midsummer Scream? Oh, to know, like, when we walked in, I was like, these are our people.
Oh yeah.
Everybody is tatted from head to toe. It's like jewelry and crystals and just the horror of it all. But it's also a very comfortable space
and uplifting. Really, there's a sort of like happiness.
Oh yeah,
at those things.
It's like childhood energy, like really happy.
You know what's interesting about that is, you know, the horror and queer worlds are overlapping so much now. When we were younger, it was not like that. Like I remember I used to. Little more behind the scenes history. I used to work for the Vampirella comic book. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I know of it. Yeah, I'm not that well versed in comics.
I worked at Harris Comics and we did Vampirella, and we would do horror conventions to, you know, push the comic. Yeah. And it was kind of homophobic, you know? It was kind of like it wasn't the energy we're talking about now, because now you can go to Midsummer Scream and it's like there are queer people and there are drag, you know, horror drag queens and things like that. So it's really interesting how much it's changed in that time, you know?
Yeah.
If you think of it now, it seems like the horror world and the drag world are so intermixed, or rather the queer world.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly helping.
Well, yeah, so you've certainly done quite a bit.
Because the thing about it is, I believe, despite what media pumps into our brains, like, yes, there are a lot of homophobia, maybe may even be on the rise, and the separation of all the peoples of this country / world, I think, is what we get pelted with over and over and over. But I actually believe the reality is there's much more tolerance across the board. I believe that there are plenty of people in this country that actually don't really think it's a big deal of who you sleep with or how you live your life. There are commonalities that bring people together, and it happens to be at places like Midsummer Scream, where you can walk into the convention and be like, there's little kids and there's queer people and there's drag queens and there's horror guys and bikers and people into makeup and like mega nerds, and like we're all there not because of the things that separate us, it's because things like darkness and horror and being scared or Halloween unite us. And I get reminded about that in those moments, and I love that. It makes me feel good and hopeful instead of like nihilistic with this like existential dread that I feel like I get when I look at my fucking phone or like watch the news.
Yeah, it's a little bit more uplifting than Twitter.
Yeah.
And I want to ask about the origin of the name, because from the first time I saw Boulet Brothers, I was always wondering, is that the Bowie song sort of repurposed?
No, we didn't even know about that song until this year, actually.
Honestly. And then things get strange. Like, we call it like the dark blessing. That's like so nerdy, but it's seriously, it's like Dragula has like the dark blessing. And even the producers and other camera ops that have been with us in the beginning, they're like, oh, there's that thing again. It's just kind of like sometimes the pathways, it just opens up and things happen. I look at it as like affirmation from the universe that you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you can get signals that you're doing the wrong thing. I learned a long time ago to listen to those signals. But the David Bowie song was one of them, where there was this guy who came to our party, Queen Kong, which we did for years, and he's like, I just know it. I gotta ask you guys. I just know it's the Bowie song. I love it. I listen to the lyrics and I know what it is. And And it had nothing to do with the David Bowie song, but I after that I Googled it and I'm like, some people think of the lyrics as nonsensical, and then I kind of started going in on it, and there were weird, odd applications to like what we do in the lyrics that I can't recall right now, but I do remember thinking like, no, that's kind of fucking uncanny. I mean,
well, also with the Boulet, you were looking up something the other day.
As a French slang, it's like drag.
And then it's ball and chain.
And it also means ball and chain in France, but in French. But we can say that it was for none of those reasons that we chose that name.
Now, do you want to say what it is, or would you like to leave that mysterious?
That's a revelation we will not be sharing.
But what we can say is,
fair enough.
Part of the origins of it is when we came out and started hosting our own nights, they were kind of circus-like, So we were like the circus barkers. So we thought, Ringling Brothers, that kind of thing. Oh, yeah. So that's where it came from. So we said, let's make a name that, makes sense for the stage like that.
Yeah,
we're like these hosts and circus barkers. So that's how we came up with it.
And it has a ring to it too. So, keeping it mysterious is kind of cool.
There was like this moment also during that time when we were coming literally from behind the curtain and going in the front and hosting our own events. We would kind of be doing more gender blending, like it was powdered wigs and sometimes more masculine and sometimes more feminine, but there was a very distinct night where it was like, we need to take this and bring it to level 10. Like I don't want to live in this half world where I'm me or I'm not me. I'm this character that we're creating or not, and taking a new name is hugely powerful in that. It's like putting on a new
title,
visage, title, a way that you want to be addressed.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just the drag or the makeup or the hair. Like the name really is part of the transformation.
It's formalizing it.
Yeah, and we were under this misconception that if you work hard and you're creative, people will recognize you for that. And then we realized after working behind the scenes for so long, I'm like, no, bitch, this is who I am, and this is what you will call me. And they all started doing it.
It works
before
so
that,
much.
you couldn't get any. I know. And before that, you couldn't get any attention. But then we're like, listen, motherfucker, you're gonna call me this, and this is what I'm doing. And
that's
like,
right.
You're right.
You're right. This is what I'm going to call you. Thank you. Thank you for
clearing that up for me. Yeah, people like to know. People want to be
I think that's
pointed
true.
in the right direction.
Yes.
I believe that's true.
Oh, well, hello there. We are the Femme Dolls. I'm Cherry Torn.
And I'm Sophie Monroe. Dominatrix bitches, home alone and ready to double down on making you our naughty slave.
We love to hear all of your kinky secrets. Oh, don't be shy. Come on, you can tell us anything. Are you gay?
Because we just always like to know if a guy is gay.
It feels so good to confess, doesn't it?
Isn't everyone a little gay?
Oh, so gay.
We were talking a lot about horror movies, but we didn't talk about what scares you in a horror movie. And for me, I get more scared by something that can actually happen, like that movie The Others with Liv Tyler. What about the two of you?
I don't get scared by any horror movies at all. I kind of watch them because I love the energy of them. And it's kind of dark and moody and mysterious. And I usually watch them more like it's a mystery. Like, why is this person doing this? What's the story behind it? Ooh, isn't this beautiful and creepy? And, for me, I get scared by real life stuff.
Way easier.
Sure. Like email is terrifying to me. Who knows what we're going to get today? Deals terrifying me. Those things, but horror movies don't. But you do get affected.
I totally do. I get affected. And for me, it's not the stuff that happens in everyday life or someone breaking into your house or anything like that. It's never gore or like someone getting their head chopped off or like disfigurement. I'm like, fine, next. It's all good. It's when we start getting into the realm of like supernatural, because for me, I find comfort in knowing kind of the boundaries in the ways in which I'm going to be scared. You know, so cue the guy with the axe breaking into your house. Like, I kind of know the realm of possibility where we're going.
Right.
But when we start to get into the spiritual realm, there's nothing to grab onto. Yeah. And that place leaves me kind of like shaking and vulnerable.
You know what movie actually that was not like the one I described before, but what I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's a thing with the film projector, and there's this creepy Slenderman type character. This family finds an 8mm projector upstairs. They play it. And
why does that sound familiar?
It's that really spooked me out for some reason. And they play old home movies, but the home movies are like of a family getting murdered by like one of the children.
Oh fuck, that sounds good.
It's really good and freaky. And because I can't remember the name of it, it's of no use to anyone.
Our director, Michael Verratti, will absolutely know.
He knows everything.
Oh,
He's like one of those people that you're just like, hey, what do you think of this? And he's like, this actually reminds me of the film of like, I mean,
let's
put
like, Sue blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who that is, Michael. Okay.
Yeah, we're like we actually recently just went on a stint of like, I think we watched 5 horror movies in 48 hours.
Oh, I love that. You know, one of my favorite things to do is the New Beverly Horror Marathon.
Oh, tell us about it.
Oh, it's so good. You get in at 7 p.m. and you leave at 7 a.m. and it's 6 movies. They don't tell you what you're going to see, but you get to see a trailer reel before each movie that sort of indicates. So there'll be like a slasher horror thing, or there'll be something like a supernatural, and you're like, which one is it going to be?
Yeah.
And if you see the trailer, that means you're not going to see the movie. So, but they'll fake you out. Like they play the trailer for Fright Night, and it was like, oh, wouldn't it be great to see Fright Night? But we're not going to see it. Then they started with Fright Night 2, which was fucking great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of
sounds
fun.
So good.
That sounds exciting.
I won't be going this year though, because I'm going to Tammy Brown's 20th anniversary gala.
Oh my god! So we were listening to your Tammy Brown interview
fabulous.
on the way over.
Oh, I love
here.
that.
Yeah,
That's so great.
It's kind of funny because we also love Tammy. I mean,
yeah.
I think Katya was saying like, she's like, let me blow smoke up your ass or something. You're like my favorite drag race queen. What a crazy character. And I also, you know, it's like, oh, we're going, if we have Tammy as a guest at one of our nights, because she's done Dragula when we did it as a party.
Yeah.
She's done Queen Kong. She, you know, we like to book her because we think she's super talented and really obviously original.
Yeah.
But we're like, we're going to fucking Planet Tammy tonight. And it's like a crazy ride and you never know what you're going to get.
She is too, like Katya. Tammy is my favorite from Drag Race. For
sure.
And I don't watch all of Drag Race. I don't know a ton about it, but from what I do know, because of the reality, Tammy was real.
Oh, very.
And I like that. You know, I like that. Again, it's the reality TV, like the really raw when you're just 100% yourself. And she was that. So I love that about her.
What did we watch? We watched The Ring because our friend told us to watch it. And then I quickly realized that I had seen it already, but just kind of a refresher. And we watched this Thai horror movie called Shudder.
There was Shudder. We also watched The Train to Busan.
Which is Train to Busan, which is that Korean zombie movie.
Oh, how is that?
We both really liked
loved it. And
Yeah,
Veronica too was the other one that we watched.
Veronica. I mean, I guess we're doing like the international horror tour, which was like I think it was Spanish speaking. I think it might have been.
I don't know, Brazil.
Yeah, but they speak Portuguese there. It was called Veronica, and it was like subtitled. That was like about possession, and then there's another one. It was ghost, possession, zombies.
Then
Samara girl, whatever the
tax
fuck she
season.
is.
Yeah, that's the
That's the one disadvantage of doing what we do is that you can't, you know, we go to all the haunts too. You know what I mean? Like undercover.
Right. That's one of the advantages as well of having the characters that you created.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do not. We definitely have a very, you know, private life that, you know, we don't like to mix them. You know.
Yeah.
But we'll go to all the haunts, and it's like you can't get scared anymore. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's
you're
like,
submerged in the thing that it's funny. You love it so much, and then you're working within it, and now you look at things in a totally different way, like the way you said earlier about watching shows and being the X-ray vision.
It's like overexposure. You're like, okay, you know, it's kind of like it's the same thing with the movies or the haunts that we go to, but I still love it all.
For sure. We actually went last night. And there are a couple of moments where you're like, okay, I've seen this and I know this and I know this. But there were 2 moments last night where I was like, yes. And I literally like put my fist in the air and I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Thank you. You know, because you see something that just does it. Like there was a haunt at Not Scary Farm last night. And there was, it was like, the room was it was super dark and the lights are all flashing and everything. And people are jumping out at you. But it was just kind of a mundane room, like a disheveled old like living room kind of vibe. And you're walking through and there's like garbage and a broken table and like this weird ripped up chair that doesn't have upholstery on it and a bookcase. But then the chair gets up and kind of like attacks you. There was a scare actor in the chair.
Amazing.
It was fucking awesome.
Any favorite serial killers? Some horror fans are into that. I'm personally not. So
I find murder or any sort of violence against people deplorable, and I just can't. I can't get into that.
She's not that girl.
No, I don't like.
Are you that girl?
I'm really not either. Like I kind of can find it kind of fascinating if there's some, you know, true crime story about it. Like I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But it's not my thing. And I know some people are like, oh, they write to them and there's tattoos up their arm, like all serial killer inspired. And like we have those friends, but that's just not what does it for us.
Same here. Like some people collect the paintings of certain ones. Yeah. I read the Helter Skelter book, but that's as far as I want to go. I don't want to go on the Manson tour. I don't want to get that. I don't want to go to Cielo Drive. I don't want to do all that.
We watch a lot of true crime stuff, and I find it incredibly intriguing. I read about it a lot, but I definitely don't think, let's be a fan of this person. I'm like, you realize what they did.
Exactly.
Right?
It's hard to say you're a fan.
Yeah. I'm like, you could have been that person, or someone you were related to could have been that, like.
How heavy is it that Trent Reznor recorded The Downward Spiral in the house that Sharon Tate was murdered in?
I didn't even know that.
Isn't that wild?
I really liked that album,
it's
too.
A great album. I don't think he was in the greatest mental space at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it worked for him.
No, it worked. The album's great, and he's in a much better place now, right?
So totally.
I love seeing Peaches Christ, of course, on the show, and we talked about some of the other guests that you've had. Who are some of the other guests that you were freaked out about getting?
I was nervous about Henry Rollins being on the show because, and we like him and his wife a lot. Like, we've met them at conventions and stuff, but we'll hang out. We did a panel with him before and
at DragCon with Alaska.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
About drag being punk, which is
But I was nervous about bringing him on because I think he was on early in the season, and our show is so punk that it's like, I feel like protective of them. I'm like, okay,
I see.
I feel like something's going to happen because honestly, the competitors are very unpredictable, and that day was a very unpredictable day.
It was
people freaking out and people stabbing themselves and stuff. It was
needles in the face. Which is already intense.
Right.
And then there's the other stuff, not to spoil anything.
I don't know that it came across, but all of them had piercing through their thumbs to do that blood ritual at the beginning.
Okay.
So there was needles and blood and people acting like fucking fools, like wild animals and stuff. And I get where you're coming from.
It was scary because they literally, at one point, and I'm not going to go too into it, one day maybe we will, a couple of them charged the judge's booth and stabbed themselves 5 feet from Henry Rollins. And I'm like, please tackle them and drag them away from me. What is happening? Because, you can't, you have people, lots of forms have to be filled out to get these people in that seat.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's scary. I'm like, could you please not act like an ass right now?
Side note, though, I think Henry was kind of damn, okay.
He seemed really excited.
Real.
Yeah.
He was excited, and I had nothing but a huge level of respect because he is a very masculine persona, that's representing from a very specific sector of music that has a lot of attachments to a certain type, and for him to kind of step out of that and come on a show like ours, it's really ballsy, and we need allies like that can just kind of dispel any of weirdness because it's gay or anything like that. It's just a non-issue.
Yeah, that was really poignant actually when I thought about the fact that he came, because it was, a lot of guys would be threatened by doing something like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. And all the judges this year have been great. Amanda Lepore was super fun.
Yeah.
She was
amazing on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get her on at the podcast.
Yeah, she's great. She would be fantastic.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm happy with all the judges.
It was fun because for us too, it's a delight to see, that the show is growing in a lot of ways for fans, but even people that want to be a part of it, want to put their weight, put their stamp on it and say, hey, I'd love to be part of what you guys are creating. It's super flattering for us, and it gives us more fuel to kind of keep going forward.
Sure, you're inspiring people that may have inspired you.
We have the nun, we have the girl from Halloween, we got one of the witches from The Craft, we've got Sig Neutron who does all this amazing special effects makeup. I think season 3 really put a connective tissue to all these worlds, and it shows maybe in a way that we weren't able to show in previous seasons.
Yeah, it's weird because we've gone so long without recognition and just sort of following our belief that seeing when we get the numbers and emails, they're like, look, you guys are the top show and you're trending on Amazon, and you see your show next to these really popular mainstream. I'm like, why are we next to Friends? And I'm like,
Vanderpump I think was one of them.
Because we were the number one reality show in the US and the UK on iTunes, and we were
for
next
episode
to
6.
That's
the
amazing.
week that 6 came out, it was the most how do they gauge it? The most
viewed or whatever,
most streamed
something
show.
like that.
Yeah.
And
so we were your number one slot, and I'm like, okay. But then they're sending us screenshots. We're like, look.
And I'm like, we're shell shocked still. I'm like, okay. It's weird. It's we say in our house, we're like, we don't celebrate victories. We just acknowledge them and move on because we're dealing in the background. It's something we're trying to get better about because we're so used to clawing our way up.
It's true. It is a big thing, actually. You have to be able to eventually, if not pat yourself on the back, be able to celebrate the victories because there are so many challenges and pitfalls and struggles along the way.
Exactly. Our claws are always out. It feels like, the two of us and our team, the people around us, and our team is like amazing. The guys that we work closely with are super devoted to like what we're creating. So I love them. But we're always kind of in the fight, struggling to just keep clawing up and forward. But we do need to remember to like, even if we just celebrate amongst ourselves.
Exactly. And because a lot of times it can be easy to look for the flaw or like, okay, well maybe that's what it is now, but what about next week?
Honestly, we were put here in some bigger reason because I feel like our struggle and being the underdog and clawing our way up since we were kids and dealing with all that uniquely trained us to be able to take this art form and take it across the finish line and get it broadcast, internationally to the people that it's hitting now, because it's hard. And honestly, I believe most people would give up,
Sure.
And
I think you're right. And also I think that the club promoting stuff, there's no better training ground for that. Right. Like,
that may be true.
It's a certain type of dancing through landmines, really, especially in the beginning stages.
Oh, definitely. I think it's like a interesting blend, a complex blend of like believing in what you're doing, pleasing people to a certain degree, but also learning how to survive when the larger predator, the one whose jungle you're trying to like kind of penetrate, is there to try to destroy you.
Right.
We learned that in the club world when we were first starting, like the first time at bat is the home run, that whole vibe. You could tell it was like, oh, this is totally working. This club is fucking hot. Like, look at how there's a line.
Too, when you are the small terrorist cell and when you've come up against the Roman Empire and they're threatened by you, you're like, why are you threatened by me? You're this huge thing. And you're like, oh,
right.
You can topple empires like that very easily if you know what you're doing. And we've been in that position where we, like, as clubs, we're not a corporate club. And some giant corporate club would try to take what we have. They see the potential in it. And we've had to destroy them.
It's true.
And it's trained us to deal with TV, I think.
They sound pretty similar industries, really.
Yeah. I mean, in this particular analogy, the time when the larger club tried to come for us and just, it wasn't the last time that a larger entity tried to come.
It never
for us.
is.
Yeah, it never really is. It's that perpetual place that what did we say earlier? Like that uncomfortable place where you're taking risks and you're always kind of go forge forward. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. But again, like then, it's just something we believe we don't engage in negativity at all. We sort of, our goal, we ignore it all or absorb it and try to look forward and be positive and just do what we love. And we believe that if we do that, we will find the success or what's supposed to happen will happen. I'll put it that way.
I'm curious what the impetus was for you two to leave New York.
I think it's just purely instinctual, and we were definitely not the only ones that felt it, because what actually we realized soon after we got here was this was a period of time where there must have been something in the ethers, because there was an exodus.
Well, it was when Giuliani was the mayor, and he was basically erasing queer nightlife. So they were doing raids on nightlife and coming up with all these ridiculous reasons, which is funny now because Giuliani's in the news for his ridiculous corrupt shit again. But at the time, he was heralded as some sort of hero. But he was actually
cleaning up New York.
He was really whitewashing the entire city and just taking all the nightlife culture and underground culture from the city. And that kind of prompted us, and we said, this seems like a signal, to leave. You worked in nightlife at the time. I worked in magazines, but I did a lot of kind of underground magazines that covered nightlife. So we crossed, we're in the same
I was in art school there too, and I had graduated, and it was then, and Giuliani, the city was changing. What we did was like, let's go camping across country.
But in the woods again. You're
back to the woods. And we found ourselves here, and we landed, we stopped in LA, and we're like, we could live here.
Okay.
And then we drove back to the East Coast, packed our shit, and moved here.
We had no cell phones or anything. We had a book that was like, here's an old 70s book that would tell you where campgrounds were. And we drove in a Jeep, and we took like a month. We just stopped. We said, wherever we want to go, we're going to go that day. So one day we wake up, be like, let's go to New Orleans. So we drove to New Orleans and we camp out there. Mm-hmm. And it was like the adventure of a lifetime.
It was so amazing. Yeah, I actually felt there was such a sense of freedom, not being connected to everything.
Yeah.
again, you're like, that's scary. And maybe there was some level of just like kind of being vulnerable and isolated, but it was like it's like someone's got to make a movie out of it, goddamn it. That's like one of those like coming of age trips or something.
Well, it really does sound like that. And also, that's that funny thing where you do release yourself from but I need to be connected to people, or I need to know exactly what I'm doing for the next week, which I kind of discovered when I started traveling solo. Traveling solo has been the most amazing thing for me, because you just shed a lot of that stuff. You think, like recently in London, I was in the taxi on the way to the airport and we couldn't get there basically because of the protests, the Brexit protests.
Oh, okay.
The first time I traveled by myself, I might have freaked out, but I just went, okay, I'm just going to call them and it's going to work out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It will work out. I'm going back to London for DragCon UK.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know what my hotel or any of that is, but I'm like, it'll all sort out. I'll figure it out.
No, it's a nice mental space to be.
Yeah.
We had a tour that got postponed because of conflict with the booking or whatever, but our Europe tour is also going to be during that time of DragCon.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but I think we'll be in Manchester the day that the London DragCon is happening.
Is there a London date as well?
It doesn't coincide with I think it might be the next.
No, that would be even better.
No,
if it's not the same
I think
day.
we go Glasgow, Manchester, then it's Dublin because there's an easy jump from Manchester to Dublin.
Okay.
And then to London.
Oh, well, great, because I'm going to be there for like 2.5 weeks or something.
Yeah, we'll be there for sure. Please come to the Dragula show.
No, I would love to. I would love
it's
to.
going to be amazing.
Fantastic.
I think it's at the Clapham Grand again, which that space
amazing.
Is so cool.
I just went there for the Bob and I mix up all the names, which is terrible. I should know, right? But there's like a bunch of and the comedy something. I know.
Yeah. It's Bob's comedy tour. It's like Bob and Jackie.
And Karen from Finance and Vivian. See, I remember their names, just the show names, because I know that there's Katya and the Comedy Queens coming up. So I just mix it up, and I'm like, no, that's not it. But anyway, so Bob's tour, put on by Club Kids UK.
Nice.
Terrific. And I went to the Clapham Grand, and a beautiful, beautiful place. I'd never been there before.
So magical. Yeah, we loved it. That was like probably one of the best stops that when we did the UK tour we did for season 2. It was our first time taking the Dragula girls there because we had been there just the two of us one other time. And we're like, it was I think the closing night of the tour, and we were at the Clapham Grand, and it's just so beautiful. It's kind of like, an old theater, a space, kind of a mini version of where we do our Halloween ball here in Los Angeles.
And that's the Globe, right?
The Globe Theater, on the 26th of this month.
See you there, folks. Yeah.
But our friend came up into the green room with like his cell phone, and he's like, look at this, look at what's going on outside. And there was a line out the door and just blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks long. I mean, that Clapham Grand was just packed for the season 2, us in the season 2 ghouls. That's
amazing.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. That'll be exciting. That's part of the thing. It's exciting to take the competitors from this season and expose, because some of them before they got on the show hadn't even been on a plane before,
Wow. Yeah.
So
that is amazing.
Interesting to be like, to let them see that people appreciate them. It always shocks them. Like taking Abora, I feel like the first time she was like, how do people in these other countries know who I am? And they love her,
Yeah. Or we did, God, what was it that we did? Oh, the premiere party. Also at the Globe, one of the competitors from season 3 was like backstage, and she's about to go on. She's like, this is the biggest crowd that I've ever performed for.
Wow.
Just coming out of the small bar scene where, she's from.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we're going to move you to the opening number now. In that case.
So the extermination challenges are always pretty intense. But I think there's only one where someone backed out, right?
Yes.
That's right.
And it was Violencia, also from Boston.
Right.
That's right.
It was unfortunate. I felt bad for her, but I wanted to see what you two thought of it, because I know on the show it's taken as an insult to the show, and I wondered if you would expand on that.
You could sense her fear immediately.
Okay.
And I did everything I could to make everyone around her try to help her overcome that fear.
Sure.
Like for me, my top shelf wish list was she jumps out of the plane.
Right.
And whatever happens after that, as far as the show or whatever, doesn't matter.
Right.
Because I believed that if she didn't, it would be something that she would regret.
Right.
And now that it's been, months and months since we filmed it and weeks since it's actually aired, I know that my feelings were true.
Right.
She does regret it. And I didn't take it as a personal offense, although I did. It was an affront to the structure of the show.
Sure.
There was a part of me that was like, if you're not going to do the shit, then why are you here?
What's the shooting timeline for the extermination challenges? So you're in the full regalia during the floor show and the judging.
The timeline is it happens immediately. or very shortly after, if there's some kind of like technical need to wait anytime, but within probably
it's
20
very quickly. I mean, usually it's literally minutes after you see them.
Yeah,
because I was wondering if you were still in full regalia and then being like, wait, what do you mean?
No, we know what's happening, and we're in drag on set all
I'm
the
just
time.
so imagining that might also intensify your feelings of like, what do you mean you're not going to do it? You know what I mean? Like, I have a sclera lens.
No,
the biggest concern is that, for me at least, it was, I can't tolerate this, because I don't want someone to think they can come on the show and avoid doing extermination, because you can't. Like, that won't happen again. If someone refuses it, I literally would just reverse everything back and set up I would just change things, or I don't know how I would do it, but you won't see that on the show again. I just will have a zero tolerance policy. And, I'm
going to fight her on that, by the way. But go ahead, continue.
It made for an interesting story, but I don't want people to think, because sometimes people think, I want to go on Dragula. But what always makes us get quality competitors is, if you're not right for the show, you're like, oh, but I don't want to do that crazy shit.
Right.
And so it weeds out people that shouldn't be on the show, that are just going on there for attention. And so I don't want people to think they can do that. And the second part is, like we spoke about fear earlier. Violencia should have jumped out of that plane.
Yeah.
And if she had I think that her trajectory on the show would have been very different. And I know people say, well, sometimes you're just too scared. And I'm like, well, if you're that fucking scared, you shouldn't come on the show. And for me, like I said, seriously, why this is the third season. This is not the first season. This is the third season. You know what the fuck's going on here.
Anything. If you had a problem with blood, if you got a problem, whatever, just maybe this is not for you.
Well, and it says that, it literally says on the application, if you are not a thrill seeker, do not come on this show. We actually talk about it on the Last Supper, the reunion episode that's coming up shortly. We talk with Violencia about it, and she was immediately regretful. And I'm talking within a week of saying no.
Yeah.
So that's what frustrates me, is because you should have listened to us, and because now you're regretful.
And you can't get rid of that. You can't go back in time. Yeah.
There's one thing that they never understand. When I say they, I mean the competitors, that we and our advice, we are always right. For any potential Dragula contestants for seasons 4, 5, and beyond,
take note.
If we give you advice, you better fucking take it.
If Ian comes up to you on set, which he does not go up to them, if Ian comes up to you and says something in your ear, you better fucking do it. But not really. But, it's kind of like, some of them will try to self-produce. I'm like, you are fucking up right now. Like, that's not going to work. I want to be really nice. I'm like, you need to be yourself and give us your reaction. That's why we cast you, because we like your raw reaction to things. Even if sometimes it's not pleasant, it's good, because you're showing the audience wants to see the real you, you know?
And what is the casting process like? Like, how do you go about selecting the people?
Well, first we get the Ouija board.
Okay, sure. Well, that's first with every good thing. Yeah.
So they,
I thought it was mezcal. That's interesting. But go ahead.
they have to audition. And we weed through a lot of people, and usually other people will watch it first to make sure it's just not a joke or a prank or something. And then we all watch it together a couple of times, and we put a lot in there. There's things that you can kind of tell from watching an audition tape if this person is going to work or not.
Okay.
But we then, the producers call them, talk to them. We talk to them privately before we cast them, because I refuse to put someone on the show without talking to them first.
Sure.
I feel like we need to be like, comes from our spirit, so I need to know that you get it.
Totally.
So that's part of it. So there's people we've talked to on the phone and went through the whole process and got to the end and been like, no.
Because once you're in the room with them, you just immediately know.
I think some people don't necessarily understand this, how heavily involved we are with almost all the processes of the show, coming from the challenges themselves, the exterminations themselves, the casting, where we're going, the guest judges. Like, this is just a huge extension of like our intention and creativity. So it is a big part of us to say, like, we want to connect with the contestants, because they're kind of in our families. And I actually can't stand some of my own personal blood family. So I'd like to try to minimize that happening in my Dragula family.
Yeah, we try not to put people on the show that we don't feel like will bring positivity ultimately.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we're not
absolutely.
going to put someone that's just absolutely irredeemably rancid on the show.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with judges. There's people like, why don't you make me a judge? I'm like, because you're an asshole. And we're trying to teach these, we're trying to teach these young performers how to succeed and to put out a positive message and turn the other cheek and all that.
Yeah.
And these people, I'm like, you're terrible.
Right.
Like,
You're a sour bitch and I can't.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to put you on the show so you can teach them how to be an asshole. I don't think so.
God, so true.
I'm also curious what your feeling is on blood pudding or eating insects, because I have a little treat for everyone.
Okay.
Salt and Straw makes terrific Halloween themed ice cream.
Yes.
And Creepy Crawly Critters is one. It's got toffee covered mealworms, I believe, and a lovely matcha green tea base ice cream. And the other one is Dracula's blood pudding.
Yes.
Which let me pull up the description, because I think.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
I think we went to Salt and Straw last Halloween season. I was like, oh my God, what a cute joke. And I'm like, wait, these bitches are serious.
Oh, they're very serious. And this is the second year that I've seen the Dracula's blood pudding as well.
Amazing.
I'm trying to remember the other one that they had last year that was, it was an Essence of Ghost last year, which was
I tried
interesting.
that one. Yeah, there was like a smoke in it.
Yeah, it was kind of an indistinct flavor, the kind where you keep going, well, let me taste another flavor.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
like kind of just neutral,
right?
Neutral left or something.
Yeah,
like,
right. Icy, neutral,
evil.
not even sweet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was the worm one, the blood one, the ghost one, and there was another one, but I can't remember. There's like a candy corn one or something. I think.
That's right. There was a candy corn one. Now
that was less adventurous.
It was, yeah. This year, I think the Great Candy Copia is the one in that slot, where it's just a whole bunch of different candies in there. So Dracula's blood pudding. This ice cream is specifically created for this year's Halloween thrill seekers. No holds barred. This is the most intoxicatingly impelling ice cream flavor we've ever featured. We've taken careful measures to balance both delectable and frightful. A heady mix of spices and cream are cooked into real blood pudding with a hint of chicken liver and then spun into our ice cream laboratory. This one will make you squirm with delight. So have you had these two before?
I've not tried the blood ones. If I have an Achilles heel, and I've shared this before, it's eating weird shit.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. It's probably like the only thing that would give me a little bit of a stutter step when it came to like our show. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because, for me, it's kind of this uncontrollable, I'll puke it.
In London, I ordered a breakfast sandwich without having a room service menu. So it comes to the room and I forgot or didn't know that the English breakfast thing has blood pudding. I almost bit into it, and then I was like, hang on a second. I opened it up, and there's these two like orange wedge slices of blood pudding in there, and I was like, okay, I'm not really eating this. That's I was like, this has contaminated the whole breakfast. Yeah.
But you've tried that stuff, like those blood sausages and
so this is, I told you I'm from like a Southern family, so
Sure.
This is like very like hunter family, so we ate all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But also my dad was a butcher, so we had tons of meat and all kinds of different stuff all the time in the house. So that doesn't excuse me out at all.
You
like,
just get very used to seeing that stuff around and all the different combinations.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
like animals hanging in the garage, like being drained. No, seriously.
No,
oh my God.
Taxidermy.
Well, I mean, just to be straight up, like when I was growing up, my family hunted, and so there would be like deers hung by their ankles just in the garage, dripping blood out, or totally ripped. I mean, it looked like a horror movie. It's funny because we talk about that, and I'm like, my mom gets so skeezed out by horror movies, and I'm like, how are you skeezed out? But look in the garage. I was like, this looks like a massacre.
Right, we had an abattoir in the house. Yeah,
and especially with things large like a deer that's very humanoid, size. It's kind of freaky. But so that stuff doesn't bother me at all. Blood or eating different things. Yeah.
One movie I couldn't make my way through was a movie my friend John Grant was showing me, I think called A Year of 13 Moons by Warner Fassbender. And the first 5 minutes, okay, fine. It's kind of brutal and tough. Then there is a long soliloquy by a trans character about the brutality that they've endured through their life. While that's going on, they're at a slaughterhouse, and it's just the whole process of the cows getting cut open, bled out. I had to tap out. I was like, look, I'm up for a lot of things, man. I can't with this. And he's like, no, I know. It's pretty intense. I was like, and I get it should be, but I can't. I just can't watch it.
Something that comes up too on the show, we actually are like huge animal activists. So despite my upbringing, we love animals and detest people usually. But so it's like, I think people watch the show and they see that they're eating crazy things and blood. I mean, these are things that have already been killed that you go to the butcher shop and buy. We don't condone any kind of animal violence. Or
no, you're not
like
killing the animal for the purpose of this.
Absolutely not. Like it's a weird, it's a line for some people that they think we cross, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, in our real lives, we're very huge animal activists.
I mean, we were both vegetarians for a couple of years, and like I do eat meat, but it's very selective at this point. And I don't know, I could see myself kind of going back.
What made you fall off the vegetarian wagon to begin with?
I think just my own sense of wellness.
Okay.
And I don't know if that has to do with actual science, like the nutrients, the B12 and red blood or whatever it is. But like,
or a bloodlust. Yeah, it's hard to say.
I can only hold it off for so long.
We were like vegan for a while. Like we tried, but and I think if I took the time and I really studied it, I could try to replace those nutrients. But there's something that's not there that we're not compensating for, because I felt like I was going to die after a month.
Well, it's difficult. I actually like to cook, and we both like food. But if you're limiting your diet, for us, we didn't have someone like, hey, do it this way, and you can incorporate this into your life. So it was just kind of like this challenge
and restriction
every day, and who the hell likes that?
No, you got enough going on with the whole
we live very busy lives too, so it just kind of didn't fit after a while,
especially when you have to go into the meetings with the business people that you said were so stressful as well. How often are those happening? Like you have a show on, it's on Amazon, it's doing its thing. Does that lessen the type of stress that you have with the business people?
I don't think so, because it creates new opportunities.
Sure.
So you're meeting new people, even, whatever it might be. You're dealing with a big touring company now, or you're dealing with another network sees something and they're like, well, we want you to do this, or, so more opportunities come up, or licensing or a book deal or whatever things come up that are stressful, because you don't, you have to navigate them, and people in the business world are just so different than the artists that we're used to dealing with,
Like straddling those two worlds has been really difficult. Like sometimes I romanticize this period. It was 2012. We did Dragula the Party. Our lives were just a lot slower. I didn't have as much money or as much responsibility or as much opportunity. I mean, these are the things that come with you pay for everything in life. Like, and I've learned that. So with all of this notoriety and visibility and possibility, it takes its toll.
Sure.
You have to pay with energy and private life and personal time and frivolity, which is just all gone. And sometimes I throw back to that period where I was like, well, I did a monthly party, but I was at the beach like 3 times a week and I really didn't have that much money. But I kind of didn't give a shit either. You know?
What's your travel schedule like? Because I know you do international things, but how thick and thorny has it gotten in the last couple of years?
The show production dominates our schedule when it's happening. Obviously, we have to be available, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
In the off season of production, it kind of coincides now in the Halloween season is probably like our busiest.
We can't do the like drag queen thing where you're like, let me just go on tours for like 6 months. Like it would be nice, but the fact is there's always stuff going on that it's like you don't know what's going to happen. Like even, I'm not going to go into what it is, but it's kind of exciting that, the show's doing very well on Amazon.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity to do something else kind of quickly.
The variety show? Like the...
No, it's like, it's just another... a lot of opportunities are coming up for the show to return to production, basically.
Yeah.
So, we can't really commit to things because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
If we have to go start... Because like she said, when we go into pre-productions, we're a part of everything.
Absolutely,
so we can't just disappear for a month and be on a tour bus. I mean, it's a great fantasy. Maybe one day that'll happen, but right now it's just not possible.
It is nice though when we do sit our asses into the seats of the plane, because literally it's like we just shut the world out and it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
And we travel very well together, and it's good just to be in that space. I think a lot of people think of traveling as stressful.
Sure.
Especially like international travel. There's so many things to remember. 11, 14 hours on a plane. For me, it's like a meditative retreat.
Because it's enforced.
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That time when we were in the plane going to Australia was like the most peaceful time of the last 4 years of my life. It was amazing. I was like, I'm going to watch a movie.
Yeah, I'm going to watch 2 movies.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to text me. Like, nothing's going to happen.
It's pretty amazing. But this month, we're doing a lot. The Halloween Ball, which the Los Angeles Halloween Ball on the 26th is the biggest party we throw every year.
Yeah.
It's just 3 levels of absolute madness, and it's drag and mazes and different dance floors and bougie bottle service and stilt walkers and there's just pumpkin carving and all kinds of stuff. It's our favorite party, but we're also doing like a Halloween event the night before in Atlanta. So then we're flying right back to Los Angeles.
That's intense.
Well, then the next day then we do Dark Harbor, like the Queen Mary does, like their haunt.
Oh, okay.
So we're hosting
Long Beach?
that.
Yes,
So I'm really
Beach.
excited about that. That's something we've always wanted to do. So that's going to be fun. We're doing that, and then we're doing Boston on Halloween night with Katya and Trixie, and the top 3 from Dragula.
Top 4.
And top 4, and then immediately the next night we're going to Louisville,
Nashville's on November 1st. Louisville on November 2nd.
Wow.
Then San Francisco on the 10th.
I think,
And I think that might be it for right now.
Yeah, then we're going to be busy.
Well, that's enough, though, I think. That's
it is.
quite
It'll be a nice stint, because like, it's simpler times for us because like we go, we perform, we meet people, we have some drinks and be fabulous and come home.
Right.
It's a lot easier than being in Los Angeles sometimes and like creating the show and doing all the things that come with it.
We produce so much stuff and it's very heady. It's, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It's nice to go and just appear and perform and meet the fans, and just have to, it's hard for us we'll be in the dressing room and be like, is someone like, who's doing the lights? Who's doing, it's hard
like,
to let it go and trust
like,
it.
Who's running this schedule?
I never trust it. I'm always like, they're full of shit. They're not doing it.
Right. I got to go check this.
And half the time we'll have Ian with us and he's our assistant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go and make sure, go. And he's like, they're good, I'm sure. And he'll be like going up into the DJ booth or the lighting booth and like nosing around. They're like, we got it,
He makes cameos on the show every season.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
really at this point, he's like, he's not really our assistant, but it's just how he started. Like he actually runs a lot of our business and he's a producer on the show. So, but we're just used to calling him our assistant.
Yes. Aide de camp, Girl Friday, any of those?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. He'll be our assistant forever, whether he likes it or not.
Executive administrator, something like that. The titles are endless. Yeah. Now, one thing we didn't talk about was music. And I imagine that you have quite a few favorites. So let me hear a few of those.
Here's what I'm listening to right now. So it's like a lot of like kind of like gothy adjacent stuff like Astra and this girl Agnes Obel, my friend turned me on to, and like Morrissey. I'll put those in rotation. Then there's another playlist which is completely different depending on my mood, which is all like Banji Ball Vogue music, like ballroom voguing, which I'm kind of low-key obsessed with right now. And then there's playlist 3, which will be super hardcore, like Combi Christ and like Guns N' Roses and just like more industrial.
And how about you?
My musical tastes are across the board. I mean, literally, I love like bluegrass, country music, gospel, like which is things no one would expect. I mean, of course, I love all the expected music and a lot of the same things that we listen to the same things, but I love Concrete Blonde, very vocal driven bands.
We've been doing a lot of country lately, like in the car and stuff.
I have an appreciation for like kind of 1950s.
Oh, I love old country.
Yeah,
old country's great. And I love like 70s country too, when it almost sort of morphed into semi-disco,
almost kind of poppy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that was an interesting period for sure.
I'm not from the South, so that's not a common thing for me, and it's not something I would necessarily would say like I'm gonna listen to country. But to be adjacent to it, that's my exposure. So
yeah, sure.
I'm kind of into this rural horror vibe. That's what's been kind of floating in my head. So some of that music, when you hear like old bluegrass, like I know some people it feels it invokes one thing to them, but to me, this horror world is coming. It's starting to develop this kind of farmhouse horror. Like you can almost see it if you look at it through a certain lens. It's kind of scary.
A lot of those lyrics. I mean, think about some of the Johnny Cash stuff. Very dark.
Super
a lot of
dark.
That. Yeah, really dark.
What's the name of that?
Ola Belle Reed.
Yeah. She's had like. I mean, I would never know her if I didn't know you, but
it's really like an old bluegrass singer, like very old school. I think she was around in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, some of that stuff is not that far away from some of the Nick Cave stuff, really, in lyrical tone.
Yeah. Which is like Concrete Blonde. I feel like it's kind of in that same universe.
True.
And one of those things, the girls from Concrete Blonde live in
Joshua Tree.
Yeah, like
Jeanette Napolitano.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because we go out there regularly too. Like we love it out in the high desert where there's like no people.
There's something odd. You think dark or like mysterious, gothy kind of people wouldn't go to such a sun-bleached place, but for some reason, there's something about the desolation that attracts artists like that out there.
I guess that's what it is, but it's like one of the only places that we can go where it's just truly quiet. The desert is healing. I really kind of believe that it is, though.
Yeah.
Like we go there and the sun just like scorches right through you and it's so quiet and the energy is so diffused. It's really like the opposite of like what Los Angeles does to you. It's kind of like the antidote.
And also, whether it's club nights or shooting the show, you're around so many people and so many different people's energies as well. So I imagine it can be hard sometimes to filter that out?
I'm very sensitive to that. And that's something we talk about. So many times I'm like, I need to go to the desert and be alone. Like I need to not be around because I take on people's energy sometimes. That's something about shooting the show with the competitors. Like on the show, when you watch it, we seem cold and distant from them. And we do that because we don't want to be influenced in our judgment by their personalities or things. But behind the scenes, we really do take a lot of that on. We're thinking about them. We're caring about them. We're like, should we do this? Should we, we want to take care of them, but we need to be removed and let them go through their experience too, or else, the whole point of the show isn't there.
Right. Well, yeah, it would be hard if you sympathize with them too much when you're seated at the table.
Right.
But I like that moment with Hollow Eve where she really had a moment, and I can't remember which one of you said it because, you kind of look alike on the show. But it might have been you who said, "I love your spirit."
It was me, yeah.
Which was a nice little sort of break in that, which you really didn't expect.
Well, I wanted Hollow to know that we appreciated everything they were bringing to the show. And the messages we resonate with, we're like, yes, it's amazing that someone's doing this. But at the same time, we knew that the delivery was going to be controversial.
Sure.
And after us being on TV and things we've said before, I'm like, this is a choice to deliver the message like this.
And really opening yourself up to both support and criticism,
and
which is heavy.
Yeah. And that's fine. Some people are cool with doing that. I don't know. I don't know how they think now in retrospect about that choice.
Sure.
But,
well, it's like season 1 Camille. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
When you don't know, you don't know. You have no idea how you're going to feel about that kind of
Well, they don't want to listen to you because they think maybe you're trying to manipulate them or you're trying to produce them or taint their artistic voice. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get you not to get your ass kicked, okay? But that's cool. Like, if that, like, seriously, it's like, I don't want them to go through that.
Yeah, not everyone can handle it. Like, we handled the feedback from the fans very differently, where I feel like I'm a little bit more detached, and maybe this speaks to Drax's sensitivity as well, where I can objectively say, okay, I understand this is someone's perspective, it's not mine, and it doesn't affect me at all.
Right.
Or if it does, it's minimal. It doesn't penetrate and it's shucked off. But I also saw what it can do to other people. Like I saw what it did to Drac. And I think people of certain sensitivity, it can be really destructive. You can get stuck in that place and not know how to go beyond it. And I look at Hollow as a lot of things. Like, personally, I think she's an amazing artist, but also a sensitive person.
Sure.
And if you're not ready for that type of criticism or that level of so many comments, people commenting on what you do and what you create across the spectrum, you could be hurt.
Right. And it is interesting too with such someone's very brash and they're doing, she's highly invested in the filth aspect of what she does. The sensitivity there. It's so funny, the dichotomy.
Yeah. And people say that about us too, and the show in general. Like, oh, the spooky, scary ones are the ones that seem to really give a fuck about the contestants. Like, we care about those girls. Yeah. Someone said something to me, the well of someone's, like, how does it go? The well that's dug. Nope, that's not it either.
Well, Louisiana said.
No.
It's okay. I meant to say paradox before and I said dichotomy. So
it's like the well of someone's empathy is dug with the amount of pain that they felt in their life.
I think that's true. And also that reminds me of something I was thinking about the other day where you think about rough times you had in your life or the painful experiences we were talking about before. And then later, not even being very cosmic or whatever you want to say, but you think, oh, maybe there was a reason. You know what I mean? Or at least I made there be a reason why I've made that not just be meaningless.
Right. I mean, we're into that cosmic view. I think you could tell, like,
by
the things that we've said tonight. But you're right. It was Louisiana definitely reflected the same sentiment, but that's not where I had heard it first. Yeah, she said the same thing. Like, queer people have been through a lot of shit in their lives, so they have a lot of care and empathy for the people around them.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I think it's time for ice cream.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be right back. So we have the Dracula's Blood Pudding and the Creepy Crawly Critters, which I'm actually quite a fan of. I've tried the Dracula's Blood Pudding once before, but I think I had one bite on the show and then it got freezer burned. So
I need to look at this.
So this is what's the ingredients?
This is the Creepy Crawly Critters, salt and straw, and we've got milk, all natural cream, sugar, tapioca, Don Bugito's coconut brittle. Like, where's the good stuff here? Hold on. Chocolate covered crickets,
toffee brittle mealworms,
Are those the two critters in there? I guess I'll try this.
I'm going to try them both. You don't?
Go for it. Okay. I mean, I will. I'm definitely like fighting the urge not to, but
this is Dracula's blood pudding. It contains milk, all natural cream, sugar, tapioca syrup, cocoa powder, and pig's blood. Brandy. It has brandy in it, so you might get a buzz. Natural food coloring.
Oh, it does have booze in it? I don't drink, so
Bloody
I typically
and
avoid.
boozy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's good. Here's the thing, though. Salt and Straw needs to sponsor us now if we're going to give them all this.
Well, here's the thing. We've been yakking about it on the fucking show. Like, it becomes every month.
Sponsor you.
They need to be sending you crates of this.
They do. I know. I'm fucking postmating the shit here, and I'm like, every time I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah.
Okay, so let's go for Creepy Carly's
Yes,
first.
let's do it. So we each got spoons and little bowls there.
Put this microphone. Are you going to do it? Are you going to serve us up? No, that's the kind of serving you can just swallow it, and you don't even know you tasted it.
I've heard that before.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
What's this? Has mealworms?
Crickets and mealworms.
Hopefully you get some in every bite. So what does everyone think?
Tastes like mint chocolate chip.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine.
The matcha's giving me a wonderful overtone over the crunchy, nondescript, I don't know what I'm eating kind of vibe. It's fine.
Something's tickling in my throat, though. Is it?
Is it moving?
It's coming out. No.
We got a very fresh batch.
Cricket. Tastes fine to me. Not too gross.
No, not at all. I know.
Right? It's like mint chocolate chip.
It is like mint chocolate chip. All right, I'm going to start dishing out the pig's blood.
Let's do it.
I know I should make a highlight reel of every time we've talked about Salt and Straw. And every time they have a monthly flavors, it's a discussion on the show. So
last year, it didn't have the liver in it, I don't think. If
I don't remember that being in the description either.
I'm only trying this because the name is cool. Like chicken livers and pig's blood, and no interest. No, thank you, ma'am.
It's not my thing either, but I figured it was the only right thing when I had you two on. So.
That is delicious. That is really good. I'm taking another bite.
You know what? That's actually pretty good.
Right? It has like a cinnamon-y.
Yeah, that's right. It does. Like if I had that and someone said, do you know what that is? I wouldn't go, pig's blood, right?
No, I actually do like it too.
That's really good. I feel like last year it had more of a metallic taste.
It did.
Yeah,
it did.
Right?
Did you try it? I don't remember that.
So the chicken liver must have balanced it out.
Right. It smooths out that little metallic blood taste. Yeah, that's surprisingly tasty.
I can't imagine they would sell it if it tasted terrible though, right?
I know. Oh, I wonder what the flavors that didn't make it are like for Salt and Straw.
Could you imagine? I think this one's totally tolerable and actually even good.
Yeah.
It's the crunch in the critters one that I can't really deal with because I know I'm just like
munching away.
I'm just munching away on mealworms and cricket legs.
Well, the mealworm's probably soft. It's the cricket crunch
that cricket crunch that's just doing me wrong.
Yeah.
It's fucking up my Halloween flow. But the blood is good. Do you want more?
I'm good. So Katya's afraid to eat this. You want to eat it?
Just refuses to.
On
my principle.
God.
What about plugs before we go? I mean, I know everyone can find you guys and probably already have, but...
Well, yeah, if you haven't seen the Boulet Brothers Dragula, it's on Amazon Prime, all 3 seasons. It's exciting. I'm not sure when this will come out, but it's a perfect thing to binge for Halloween and force your friends and family to watch. It is drag unlike anyone has seen before, and that's the truth.
Oh, and I have to ask about the sclera lenses.
Yeah.
How comfortable are they to wear?
Believe it or not, I find them more comfortable than the smaller, cheaper ones that you can buy.
Yeah.
Because you have to get your eye fitted by an optometrist to see the diameter of your cornea or however they say it. But once they slip in, their original function was like a medical to protect the surface of your eye. So once they slip in there, you almost can forget that they're there.
Oh, okay.
They're thicker than regular contacts. It's supposed to be, it's almost like a bandage for your eye.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so the air can't get to it. So if you're healing from something, I find them to be very comfortable. The whiteouts, the ones that we wear this season mostly are, it's not about comfort, but you can't see anything.
Oh, really?
They definitely obstruct your vision. Like, the best way I describe it is any detail in the periphery is gone. Yeah. Any detail in the shadows are gone. So you can see, but you can't really see well.
But sometimes why you don't, our floor shows where the competitors present their looks, you don't see us watching them because we can't have everything in.
We can't
see anything. And then sometimes I know they think we're nuts, and I've never told them this after, but they'll be standing there and I'll literally walk up like an inch of their face and like be looking at all of them, because I want to see all the details that they put into everything. But if you have those contacts, and you can't see a damn thing.
Yeah.
So. Drag is different for everybody. And I talked to that about Katya before when she was backstage with us at Queen Kong. And, she was like really feeling the feminine energy of her drag. And we talked about, I was like, do you ever feel like that? And it's like, no, like that's not like, I feel like a Disney villain when I'm in drag, and I feel powerful, but it's almost sort of imperial. And it's like, it's not like that kind of drag, you know what I mean? It's different. It's interesting because there's so many different ways you can do drag.
And how that makes you feel. How Laganja dresses to how we dress is really different, or into how Lena and Peaches, and like everybody's experience is different. But I like to say, for us, if we're not 100% uncomfortable from head to toe, then we've forgotten something.
Yeah, something's off. Yeah, for sure.
That's good. It's like when people say, if you don't have a little bit of nerves before going out on stage, are you still doing the right thing for yourself? So that's perfect. So if you're in pain, you're on the right path.
Right. Absolutely. If your feet hurt, you can't see, you're sweating, you're corseted to the point of where you can't even breathe, you have claws on so you can pick up and interact with the world in no meaningful way, then you're good.
Oh, it's like people book you for stuff and be like, well, we're going to do this at 6 p.m. and then at 12. I was like, wait a minute. At 12, I'm going to be asleep. I was like, this drag has like a 3-hour expiration. Although now it's different with filming. We're in drag for a long time.
Oh yeah,
and it sucks very bad.
How long roughly? What, 8 hours?
It's been
longer than that.
14 hours before. There's been times where there was one night, it went over a 2-day period basically, where we got in a look. We're in that look for like 8 to 10 hours. Had to take that look off, reshave and everything, get in another look, and then do it again at like 6 in the morning.
3 looks. We were in drag for over 22 hours or something like that, but it was like 3 different looks.
Oh my God.
We had to finish.
Yeah.
We had to finish that night. So it was just, you think back on that, it's just,
how did you get through it?
Yeah,
and also
how did you get
because
through
I'm sure even if you were like, oh, we have 3 hours to sleep, can't turn the adrenaline off.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And also being producers of it too. You're thinking about all these things.
To let go.
So you're sitting there like sitting in the judge's booth and they're like, you're just in drag, you're just judging drag queens, but what's actually happening is like people, and you're like, the insurance, this, the camera did this, guy did this, blah, 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 blah. You're like, you just have to sit there and look forward and be like, for your outfit today, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, how do you expect me to concentrate? You know what I mean?
So how long does it take to do the intro stuff, like when you're seeing the safe house and the death scenes?
Some of them are more involved.
Yeah.
The opener, the season 3 opener, where we're kind of incarcerated, and that
and the ambulance and
was like
all
3 or 4
that was
days.
3 days.
Yeah.
To get all of that.
Yeah.
And then some of them are a little bit more self-contained, where it'll be like one day at the safe house we can do that episode.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like intro. The death scenes are generally shorter.
Half day for one, depending on how complicated.
Or we can do like 3 in a day, depending on
if we.
There was one day.
There was one
night
like
a lot of
where I was
them. Like, fuck, why are we doing this to ourselves?
That when you're like, oh, I'm pissed at someone. Oh, I'm pissed at us. That's right. Because we're the producers.
Like, why am I? Oh yeah, I made that decision.
This has been a wonderful day. Thanks so much for coming over.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the ice cream.
Hey, anytime,
delicious.
please. Yeah. The next time they come out with something with bugs in it, we should all go together.
All right.
It's a deal.
Maybe something for Christmas time. Yeah.